Breaking today, the final traces of Prince Harry and Meghan Markle from the British royal family are being erased. And this is far more significant than just the destruction of their former home.
Our clear message is being sent, and Charles is bringing in the bulldozers to bury any evidence that Harry was ever there. Why? Because the king is done. He's out. He wants to move on, and it's a very encouraging development.
There's a house in Windsor that has been sitting empty for 3 years now. 5 bedrooms, copper bath, gardens, the works. And the news that came through Windsor on the 28th of May wasn't about renovating it back into shape for somebody else. It was about taking the whole place apart. Surveyors have been called in, not to patch up Frogmore Cottage, to carve it back into the separate little staff flats it used to be, before Harry and Meghan ever moved in. Bed sits for the help, quarters for the gardeners and the household. That's the plan now, according to reporting first run in The Sun and picked up afterward by the Press Association and Sky News.
Harry has given Buckingham Palace is that Buckingham Palace is a location that is fully under control of the monarchy. And what I mean by that is that Harry and Meghan can't just invite anybody in. They can't just run things themselves. They are held under the umbrella of the authority of the monarchy. So if they have a friend come over, the friend has to go through security. The friend has to check in. The friend has to give their name. Hopefully they're actually doing that now, because during Andrew's time, they weren't as good about doing that. But every single person walking into that building should have their name down.
This is the same house British taxpayers spent £2.4 million doing up for the Sussex couple back in 2019. The same house that became a symbol of everything they were promised when they were still inside the institution. Now it's getting unbuilt. A royal source put the reasoning behind the decision about as plainly as you'll ever hear a palace source speak on the record. The cottage has been sitting completely empty for 3 years now. Even Prince Andrew, when offered the place, decided it wasn't quite good enough for him to move into. The current thinking inside the household, in that same source's exact words, is that maybe if every last trace of Harry and Meghan finally gets scrubbed out of the building, somebody on staff might actually fancy living there instead.
Furious King Charles has decided to completely remove all traces of Harry and his time at Frogmore Cottage with seismic building work, which is going to run into millions, and it will make Harry a sad and distant memory. Now, Frogmore Cottage was once the Duke's luxurious home located on the vast Windsor estate. Harry lived there during happier times when he was in the bosom of the royal family. Now he's being deleted, airbrushed away, cut out of history, all at the command of his father, King Charles.
Get rid of any trace. That's the phrase that stops you, isn't it? Not renovate. Erase. The way you'd quietly scrub a name off a door before the next tenant moves their boxes in. No bulldozer has actually rolled up to the building yet, and I'll be straight with you about what's confirmed and what isn't as we move through this. Over the next while, though, I want to walk you through what's really happening here behind the headlines. Because the biographer, who has watched this couple longer and colder than almost anyone else writing today, Tom Bauer, believes this one small house in Windsor tells you everything about exactly where the Sussexes have actually ended up.
Home still vacant. And with this home basically left as Harry and Meghan left it, there is, of course, always the thought, the fantasy of, oh, we can just come back. But the monarchy is sending Harry and Meghan a very clear sign here. There is no coming back. You can't just waltz back in and waltz back into this house and waltz back into all of our lives as if nothing happened. This house is going to be renovated. It's going to be changed. It's going to be given to somebody else. It's not going to be for you. It's going to be for somebody else.
One question hangs over the entire business like fog. If even Andrew himself turned this house down flat, who on earth is it actually being cleared out for now? Here's something genuinely strange. The monarchy wrote a sentence about itself in its own official accounts last year. During the year, Frogmore Cottage has remained empty. That line came straight out of the Sovereign Grant Report. The Crown documented its own ghost house in black and white inside a document the taxpayers help pay for every single year. Think about how unusual that is to put in print.
They are quite literally erasing, expunging every trace of the Duke and Duchess of Duplicity from the royal residences, from the royal estate.
You need to understand what Frogmore actually was in the first place to grasp why any of this matters now. The cottage was never actually theirs to begin with. It was what royal arrangements call a grace and favor home, lent out by the late Queen to the couple as a kind of thank you for the public work they did representing the family. That's the whole of the arrangement in plain English, and that has been the basic arrangement going back through generations of royal staff and family. You serve the institution properly, you get the keys handed to you. You stop serving it for whatever reason. The keys go back to the institution. No tenancy in any legal sense, no deeds with your name on them, no claim of any kind to the building. It was always a loan handed out against a job being done.
Interesting, which I was surprised by and comes up early in the Betrayal book, is when a very, very famous member of the British establishment, really a household name, is asked by the Queen to explain to Meghan before the wedding what life will be like. And that person goes to visit her every 3 or 4 weeks in Kensington Palace. And after the third and fourth visit, tells the Queen that Meghan has absolutely no intention of staying in Britain after the wedding, and there's a lot of trouble ahead. Of course, it was too late to do anything, but they saw it long before that glorious day in June. And I'm afraid that that is her problem. She is very calculating and very ruthless and very self-promoting, but she's taken on more in the end that she can chew.
In the spring of 2023, just a few weeks after Harry's memoir had landed on the front of every bookshop in the country, the keys went back. King Charles personally asked the couple to vacate the property. By the end of that June, they were out. And the house has stood completely dark and empty ever since. The palace even quietly offered the place to Andrew at one stage, as part of an attempt to shift him out of Royal Lodge into something smaller. Andrew said no thanks. He sat right where he was, inside his 30-something room mansion, and turned his nose up at the 5-bedroom cottage his own nephew used to live in.
Problem is still the inclusion of Harry and Meghan as the Duke and Duchess of Sussex on the website. And this would be so easy to remove because they did it for Andrew. And it's time to do it for Harry and Meghan.
That single fact tells you everything you need to know about what the household quietly thinks of the place now. Bad memories baked into the walls and not worth the bother of dealing with. Remember exactly who is footing the bill to undo all of this work now. The sovereign grant, the public money that keeps the royal palaces running every year. That fund just jumped to £132 million for this year alone, up by better than half on the year before. So the very same fund that originally did the cottage up for the Sussexes back in 2019 is now the exact same fund paying to wipe every trace of them out of it in 2026. The taxpayer renovated the place specifically for them at the time.
And Meghan spent heavily on turning the property into their family base, and the UK taxpayer had to foot the bill. $3.2 million. This is money that the British people don't have. Imagine the people around me in this great city of London. Here I am in London Bridge. They're working so hard, some of them on the minimum wage, and their taxes were going towards Harry and Meghan's vanity project, improving a perfectly good luxury house because Meghan was in competition with Catherine.
The same taxpayer is now paying to erase them from it completely. There's a grim little symmetry sitting in that arrangement. Hold that £2.4 million in your head for the next few minutes. Public money, every penny of it spent, will be circling back to exactly where it ended up going. Tom Bower has been watching this entire cottage saga play out from the very beginning. His personal read on it is not a gentle one at all. His verdict, boiled right down to its essence, is that the Sussexes have gone from being the most talked about couple anywhere on the planet to a quiet problem the firm simply wants tidied away neatly. The tidy away process, it seems, starts with the actual bricks of the buildings. His book, Revenge, and his newest one, Betrayal, both landed at the very end of March this year. When he talks about the Sussexes now in interviews,
They are keep on seeking opportunities to appear in public, keep on seeking opportunities to promote themselves as great humanists, and keep on making mistakes because they don't realize how complicated the world is and how they're totally ill-equipped to cope with those complications.
The single word he keeps reaching for over and over again is desperate. On GB News, sitting right alongside Jacob Rees-Mogg in the studio, Bauer argued openly that the couple have reached the point where they are, in his exact phrase, desperate for money, because their main source of income, Netflix, has, in his own words, cut them off completely. He says they are also genuinely desperate now for royal validation of any kind. That last point is his characterization rather than a number sitting in any ledger, and you can take it or leave it as you wish. The actual spine of Bauer's whole thesis is this one specific idea. The descent, he reckons, is now a far more gripping story to watch than the rise ever was.
Rafe, guess what she thinks is going to turn around the finances now? She's actually launching matchsticks. That's the latest. Look at this. Oh, God, matchsticks. Well, I guess it's burning down Frogmore Cottage, at least, that the royal family are intending to do.
The climb up the ladder, we all watched together in real time for years. It's the slide back down that he personally finds genuinely interesting to track. Here's exactly where Bauer's personal opinion bumps straight into something you can actually check against the public record. Because the money story is real, verifiably real, even if you strip out every last anonymous palace whisper from the equation. Start with Spotify. That deal ended back in the summer of 2023 by mutual agreement between the couple and the platform, after the pair had delivered a grand total of one series of episodes to fulfill the contract. Then look at the Netflix arrangement next. The big headline streaming deal originally signed back in 2020, the one reported at the time at anything up to $100 million in value. That entire deal quietly got downgraded last August into a far smaller first look arrangement instead. Less money flowing in, no exclusivity tied to it anymore. That's the very same shape of deal the Obamas slid into themselves once the initial novelty had worn off their original arrangement.
These two, they don't do their due diligence. They want to show up, they want their picture taken, and they want to get out of Dodge, and they want to sit back and read the praise. I mean, it was like copy and paste for some of the tacky outlets that worship at the ground of Meghan Markle. Meghan Markle's powerful speech was like, I found 5 different websites that literally it had almost the same headline. Meghan Markle gives powerful speech. They don't want to do the work. They don't want to do the research. And I think that that's why they have fallen out with Spotify, and in some cases,
a clear sign of the relationship cooling without being publicly killed off. It's not as though the actual work they delivered was flying off the shelves in the meantime to justify the original valuation either. Meghan's Netflix series, With Love Meghan, limped through the rankings after its release. The first run landed somewhere around 389th on Netflix's own engagement chart for the half year, out of 7,000 or so titles that the platform tracked over that period. The follow-up content didn't trouble the top of anything when it dropped afterward either.
Exploitation of the situation.
Yeah.
I mean, it worked for Meghan when she was in the so-called royal tour, which I described in Portrayal in Nigeria and then in Colombia. And she did, of course, the same when she visited Jordan with the World Health Organization. But Bondi Beach was a terrible, terrible mistake, as was her trip to Australia. She fell flat on her face. And she tries to empathize. Well, she did it, of course, in Texas when the school shooting happened. She flew there to lay some flowers and then ignored her father, who at the same time had a near-death stroke. I mean, everything is for commercial and for personal publicity. I think the Bondi Beach was gross. It was insensitive, but it showed the real Meghan. Anything to earn a dime, anything to promote herself at anyone's expense.
Numbers that low signal something specific to studio executives watching them every week. When Bauer says publicly that the well is running visibly dry for the couple, the verifiable numbers, for once, are sitting right there beside the opinion. The two halves of the argument actually line up. It's worth remembering just how far this has actually fallen from where it started. When that Spotify deal finally collapsed in the summer of 2023, a senior executive at the company publicly branded the pair grifters in the aftermath, which is genuinely not the sort of farewell business partners usually offer each other on the way out the door of a major deal. And that word was a flag planted in the ground.
So you have people who are able to watch you and keep an eye on you. And that's why Harry and Meghan, I think, liked the idea of Frogmore Cottage, because they were on a crown estate, but they weren't under the umbrella and the watchful eye of the monarchy. And the monarchy can't let them do that. And so they stripped them of it because they proved they can't be trusted. They used pictures and videos and images from that home in their Netflix documentary. And that, of course, is violating security for sort of everyone. That's the thing. Harry and Meghan violate security for everyone in order to promote themselves.
This was a couple who, only a few short years before all of this, commanded a memoir advance reported at somewhere around $20 million for a single book. A book that then went on to become the fastest-selling work of nonfiction in publishing history when it actually landed in stores. The numbers from that period weren't theoretical or inflated. They were enormous. And they were real money changing hands. That's exactly the whole point of the comparison. That's the reason the thinning of all this money flow now reads less like a normal run of bad luck and far more like a quiet tide actually going out across the entire portfolio at once. Picture the situation clearly for a moment. The institutional door is swinging quietly shut at Windsor in real time. At the very same moment, the money doors are clicking closed one after another out in California. Two completely separate fronts collapsing on the same calendar. Bauer doesn't think for a second that the timing is just coincidence. He thinks the whole picture is what he calls a reckoning finally arriving for them.
Is conceding here that Prince William is right about the fact that the Sussexes simply can never return to the United Kingdom in any form, can never have any royal role again. Their home, the place that they wanted to keep as some sort of base in the United Kingdom paid for by us, is going to go back to being multiple cottages because simply it is not fit for them.
The next door to close after the others was the one with Meghan's own name written on it. In March of this year, Netflix walked away from her brand as ever entirely. That's Meghan's own personal lifestyle brand. The jam jars, the flour sprinkles, the wines being rolled out. Netflix had been the major commercial partner standing behind the entire brand operation. Then Netflix simply stepped out of it. Fair is fair here, and I'm not going to sit here pretending the woman can't shift a jar of jam to consumers who want one. Both sides publicly called the split amicable in their official statements. As Ever said, it was now ready to stand on its own 2 feet without Netflix backing. The very first product drop back in April of 2025 did genuinely sell out within about an hour of going live. That part of the story is real and worth crediting, honestly.
The messaging here is quite clear. There is no place for them within the royal household, within the royal entourage, no matter how much they try to portray themselves as pseudo-royal.
The bigger pattern, though, once you actually line every single piece up in a row, is genuinely a hard thing to look away from. Spotify, gone completely. Netflix proper, downgraded into something much smaller. Boeing, which had put real, serious corporate money behind the Invictus Games for years, has confirmed publicly that it will not be sponsoring the Birmingham Games coming up in 2027. The Australian government quietly declined to renew a $9 million commitment to Invictus Down Under. The chief executive of that program said openly that his team only found out about the cancellation minutes before the actual budget announcement went live publicly.
Other might be a little bit softer. There's a whole load of reasons for that. But William is absolutely categorical that Harry and Meghan just have to be banished. You know, they have to live in exile. And William's going to be furious if the government and this Ravec committee give him the security protection back, because that means Harry can swan in and swan out whenever he...
One income stream after another, drying up completely, or just simply walking off the pitch without ceremony. Even the Birmingham Organizing Committee itself has had visible internal wobbles, with one of its senior board figures stepping down altogether earlier in the year. Sponsors you could very nearly count on the fingers of one hand, set against an operating budget that runs well into the tens of millions of pounds for the games to actually happen. That £2.4 million I asked you earlier to hold on to in your head. Here's where it actually ended up going. It went into a house the couple lived in for about 10 months total. A house they then repaid every single penny on in full back in September of 2020 after stepping back from royal duties. They are not freeloaders on that particular score, whatever you think about everything else. Anyone telling you they never paid the money back is just flatly wrong about the documented record. Then that fully repaid, beautifully renovated house sat completely empty for 3 solid years afterward. Now it's going to be carved back into staff flats anyway. £2.4 million of careful renovation. The grand plan now is to undo most of it brick by brick. There's something deeply unusual about that decision when you sit with it. Here's the part of the entire story that should stop you cold for a second. Whatever you personally happen to make of Meghan herself as a public figure. Before anyone fires off in the comments that they're now flat broke and completely ruined, hold on a second. They are absolutely not destitute by any reasonable measure. Even the most hostile reporting on their finances puts Harry's personal worth somewhere in the tens of millions of pounds. A financial cushion that size is not the poor house by anybody's definition.
How mediocre and miserable their trip was to Australia in terms of raising money. We saw the huge embarrassment for Meghan when she went to see the very sensible Swiss in Geneva, and she had enough people there to fill a British phone box. Nobody is interested in them any longer.
That was terrible. 10 people showed up. Well, 10 fans showed up. There were like a few journalists.
Let's not pretend at something that simply isn't true about their current situation. The cash is still there in significant amounts. Here's what the actual pattern shows, though, when you study it closely. And honestly, it's worse for them in some ways than just being broke would be. The word for what's happening is contraction. This is a couple who marched right out from under the institution years ago, swearing blind to anyone who would listen that they didn't need it anymore. Who are now standing in Montecito, watching that same institution calmly close every door behind them. While the glittering deals they once openly bragged about thin out one by one in real time. They wanted out from under the firm. The firm has now obliged them completely. The only catch is that nobody ever bothered to tell them that out actually meant out for good this time. With the locks getting changed behind them, the family home being turned back into bedsits for staff the moment their backs were properly turned. For the longest while running, the quiet assumption among people watching, even among people close to Harry himself privately, was that Frogmore would always be the safety net for them.
Never seen somebody try so hard to prove that they're not the most unpopular person in the world.
Someone who fled England because she needed her privacy.
Yeah.
Never let us forget that.
Yeah.
I mean, I know, it's absolutely astonishing. And then, of course, the publication of all her very top secret wedding photographs.
Oh, yeah.
To mark the 8th anniversary. That as well, absolutely another invasion of her privacy. I mean, she is literally digging and digging and digging, looking for something to get attention. And probably can't understand why there isn't a huge wave of adoration for her. She's actually puzzled why people don't love her. And that makes it even more interesting.
The bolt hole back home. If California ever went sideways, for whatever reason, there was always that little house waiting back in Windsor to come home to eventually. That assumption is now being physically knocked down along with the original plaster on the walls. There is no bolt hole. Once Frogmore actually gets turned back into staff flats, there is no Sussex family address left anywhere in Britain at all. Not a corner of Windsor with their name on it on any document. Not so much as a spare bedroom kept aside. The long-running quarrel with William sits behind all of this like weather you can't quite see directly but can certainly feel pressing on the room. The brothers remain officially estranged. That much is on the public record and has been on it for a long time now. There's no shortage of loud commentary online about what William specifically might do to the Sussex titles the actual day he becomes king. Honestly, I treat most of that speculation as exactly what it is in reality. Commentary, not actual gospel from anybody inside the building. The harder, more sober reporting on it actually leans the other direction entirely. It suggests William may well leave the titles completely alone when his time comes.
Story is actually more significant than it may seem, because it is the royal family quite clearly drawing a line. It's making it clear, is it not, Rafe, that we simply do not want them, but also that the royal family simply do not want them. Because of course, if Operation Thaw was real, the obvious place for Harry and Meghan to return would have been Frogmore Cottage. And despite spending all of that money, Rafe, it's literally about to be bulldozed. At least the renovations will be, because it's going to be turned back into, I believe, multiple flats for effectively senior members of the household, which is what it was before Harry and Meghan.
Viewing the Sussexes these days as more of a faded embarrassment to be ignored than any kind of genuine threat to the institution worth taking seriously. The day-to-day picture writes itself effectively without William needing to say a single word publicly on the matter. The heir to the throne, busy with engagements, working in his role, photographed openly laughing with his 3 children at events. The spare, an entire ocean away in California, watching the last bricks of his English life get quietly rearranged for the household gardeners to move into instead. Here's the thing about this family situation that people genuinely keep getting wrong when they comment on it. That palace door never actually slammed shut in the dramatic way commentators describe it. It closed the exact way a door closes when somebody has quietly taken your name off the guest list at the front and then simply let you find out later through somebody else. So what is all of this actually for in the end? The clearing out of the cottage, the carving up of the rooms, the cold and methodical erasing of 2 people from one small house in Windsor that nobody else even wanted to live in. Tom Bower has a direct answer ready for that question. It's the most chilling single sentence in this entire developing story, partly because of exactly who quoted it straight back to him afterward in print. Tom Bower once said openly, out loud and in public on the record, that the monarchy as an institution, in fact, actually depends on obliterating the Sussexes from our state of life. Obliterating from our state of life. Those are his words exactly. The reason we can be absolutely certain those were his actual words is honestly the most fascinating part of the entire situation.
Made some very, very poor strategic errors, thinking she could profit from the title without any consequence, without paying the dues. And of course, in the end, I have no doubt there'll come a day when they both lose their titles and their children too, because they will just be forced to go too far for their own survival. And at that moment, the same will happen to them as what happened to Prince Andrew.
Harry and Meghan's own official spokesperson quoted that precise line straight back at him in their public response statement. When their team came out swinging publicly at Bower's book Revenge after its release, they reached directly for that one exact sentence to make their point. They said the language he used was, and I'm quoting their team's statement directly here, language that speaks for itself. They went on to accuse him of crossing the line cleanly from valid criticism into something they called outright fixation on the couple. There it sits on the public record, confirmed from both opposing sides of an open war between author and subject. One man saying clearly the institution survives only by erasing them entirely. The other side responding by not denying for one moment that he said it. They simply think the existence of the line itself proves he's now gone too far in his coverage. Right in the middle of that bitter little public argument sits a small, empty, beautifully renovated house in Windsor. The surveyors at the front door already. The plans for converting it back into staff flats already drawn up and signed off behind closed doors. The bolt hole disappearing. The income streams thinning visibly. The name being slowly scrubbed off the brick of the building itself. You don't carefully renovate a house you intend to remember somebody by going forward. You renovate one you intend to use for somebody else. That distinction matters more than the headlines suggest. The long and short of the entire situation is about as simple as these family things ever get when you actually look at them honestly. This was never really about Frogmore specifically as a building at all. It was about making absolutely certain there's nothing left standing physically for the Sussexes to come back home to in Britain. That was the actual point all along, hidden underneath the renovation talk. The erasure of them from the property, happening brick by careful brick, is looking a great deal more deliberate now than any spot of routine spring maintenance ever could be. Maybe the strangest thing about this whole developing situation isn't the cottage itself getting carved back into staff flats either. It's how quietly the institution chose to do it. No press conference announcing the decision publicly. No formal statement from the palace explaining the reasoning to journalists. No comment offered to the press one way or the other. Just surveyors arriving at the front door one Wednesday morning in May with a clipboard between them and the plans already signed off in advance somewhere upstairs. That's the part the Sussex team never seems to have planned for properly in any of their public moves over the years. Institutions like this one don't fight you publicly in the press, the way you fight them in your interviews and documentaries. They don't hire podcast hosts to defend their position. They don't sit down with Oprah for 90 minutes of carefully managed responses. They simply outlast you while you keep talking into the cameras. The cottage being unbuilt right now isn't a punishment being handed down from above. It's a slow forgetting being formalized into paperwork. Slow forgetting that was always going to happen eventually once the family stopped serving the institution that handed them the keys originally. The only real surprise is how quickly the forgetting actually got moving once the door finally closed properly behind them. The firm isn't tidying up a single cottage in Windsor. It's closing an entire chapter of the family's history quietly and finally. The brick-by-brick approach is how institutions this old prefer to handle endings. No drama, no statements, just movement. So drop your honest verdict in the comments below. Should the palace finally come out and say it plainly that there's no way back for the Sussexes after everything? Or should they carry on with this slow, silent clearing out behind closed doors the way they've been doing it for years? Catch you in the next one.
William is planning to act very decisively when he becomes king to take away the titles, the HRHs, once and for all from all non-working royals, which will have the silver lining for him of removing them from Harry and Meghan.
I think people would applaud in the streets if it were to happen because Harry and Meghan, especially Meghan, I think, she does not care about the royal family at all. The only thing she cares about is that she has a title she can lord over her famous friends because she's not as rich or successful as them, but she does have a royal title, and that's all that matters to her.
Now considering all options, including legal routes, to stop his younger brother, who he views as a treacherous soul these days.
Something has clearly changed inside the royal family, and it did not happen by accident. It was quiet, calculated, and done with the kind of cold precision palace insiders know all too well. The mood behind the scenes is starting to look less like a family disagreement and more like a full shutdown of ties. Prince Harry reportedly shared a plan with a major newspaper, a plan where Archie and Lilibet could someday choose to become working royals. Archie is only 6, Lilibet just 3. But even the idea reportedly sparked serious tension behind palace walls.
Prince William doubles down. According to multiple sources, it's now a matter of when, not if, he strips Prince Harry and Meghan Markle of their royal title.
Then came the response through friends of Prince William speaking to the Daily Beast, and it hit hard. William despises Harry and Meghan at this stage, a senior source claimed, and when he is king, his fury will rain down on them. That does not sound like someone leaving room for peace talks. Those words sound like a future king who has already made up his mind and is only waiting for the right moment to act. And according to several reports from people said to have direct access to William, the next move may not be private discussions or family meetings. It could be something far more official. The claim is that new letters patent could eventually be issued, removing the HRH status from the Sussex family for good, with no easy path back. If those insiders are even partly correct, the conversation is no longer about whether Archie and Lilibet could become working royals someday.
No, it definitely does not. We see this even reflected in Harry's cousins. So Princess Beatrice and Eugenie, they are not working royals, and yet they also have an HRH in front of their names. Obviously, we do have Prince Andrew, who still is not allowed to use his, much like Harry, but still technically holds an HRH status. And so really it's just a styling, but it does sort of mean something in the hierarchy of the royals.
Now people are questioning whether the Sussex side of the family could lose royal status altogether. To really understand why this matters, you have to know what HRH actually means, because many people still get confused about it. His Royal Highness and Her Royal Highness are not personal names or automatic birthrights. They are royal styles, official forms of address granted through royal authority. And some critics believe the public has never been given the full picture about how easily those titles can be controlled behind the scenes.
Markle has been very brazen recently with the use of the HRH. In 2020, during the negotiations for Harry and Meghan to leave royal duties, it was agreed with Queen Elizabeth that they will not use the HRH title. That is a long-standing precedent, and there's good reason for it.
An HRH title does not automatically give someone power inside the monarchy. It does not guarantee royal duties, taxpayer support, palace staff, or a seat at the center of royal operations. Those are completely different things. Princess Beatrice and Princess Eugenie still have HRH titles, but they are not working royals. Prince Andrew technically still holds the style too, yet he has been pushed far away from official royal life. That is why insiders reportedly see the latest claims from Harry's side as shocking. The idea that a child holding an HRH title today could later step into a working royal role simply by choice has no modern precedent and no official constitutional backing.
King Carl Gustaf of Sweden actually stripped the HRH stylings from his grandchildren from his second and third child. So those 7 kids no longer have an HRH. They still have a prince or princess title. They still have dukedoms, but they don't have that HRH styling because they're not working members of the family, or they will not be.
According to people close to Prince William, the argument is being viewed inside royal circles as completely unrealistic. One friend of William reportedly called the whole situation beyond parody. But the bigger issue is not just the royal protocol drama. It is the growing contradiction people say they are seeing between what Harry and Meghan publicly claim and what their actions suggest behind the scenes. For years, Harry and Meghan have said they left royal life because it damaged their peace, hurt their family, and exposed them to unbearable pressure. They said they wanted privacy for their children and distance from an institution they believed had become unhealthy.
Harry and mostly Meghan, it seems, are actually really obsessed with the titles. Meghan and Harry care a lot about those titles, and they say that they don't, but they clearly do.
This has been Meghan Markle's MO from the beginning. She wants all of the privileges that go along with an identity, but she doesn't want any of the responsibility. She wants the tiara. She doesn't want the public service.
Yet now, critics point out, Harry is reportedly discussing possible future royal roles for Archie and Lilibet in national media conversations. At the same time, Meghan has continued to face scrutiny over the HRH title she had agreed to stop actively using after the royal exit deal. To many royal watchers, the messaging no longer lines up. The public statements talk about separation from royal life, while the actions keep circling back toward royal status and influence. Sources claim William has been paying very close attention to that gap, and that frustration inside palace circles has only grown stronger over time. The roots of this situation go all the way back to the famous Sandringham Summit in early 2020. That was the meeting where Queen Elizabeth II sat down with Prince Charles, Prince William, and Prince Harry to work out the terms of Harry and Meghan's departure from royal duties. It was an extraordinary family meeting during a tense moment in royal history. People close to the institution say the late Queen handled the situation carefully because she still trusted Harry and believed agreements made inside that room would be respected. The deal reportedly allowed Harry and Meghan to keep their titles and maintain dignity while stepping away from official royal work. But in exchange, royal insiders say there was a clear understanding that the HRH styling would no longer be actively used, not just for business purposes, but across the board. That detail has remained a major point of tension ever since.
Think about Meghan. I see somebody who's sort of, you could say, cosmopolitan. She doesn't really like the countryside. She doesn't really like to get dirty. She doesn't like to get into the muck. And we see that even when Meghan did a supposed vegetable haul, like they were all perfect and that she posted on Instagram. And so for me, I think, yes, people can evolve what they enjoy, but Meghan, of course, is hyper focused on the royals. And I think Meghan always feels this massive inferiority complex. And so she's always trying to compete with Catherine in whatever way that she can.
Critics say the HRH label slowly started appearing again in certain settings, including correspondence and public references where palace traditionalists believed it should no longer be used. To some observers, it looked less like an accident and more like a gradual return to royal branding that many thought had already been settled years ago. When questions started coming in about the HRH issue, Harry and Meghan's side reportedly shifted the explanation. The argument became that the restriction only applied to commercial use of the title, not personal or private situations, but royal insiders strongly pushed back on that version of events. Sources connected to palace circles claim the original agreement was understood very clearly by Queen Elizabeth II and by the senior royals around Prince William. According to one former courtier quoted by the Daily Beast, the feeling inside certain royal circles is that Meghan took advantage of the late Queen's trust. And people close to William reportedly believe that disappointment has now turned into full anger behind the scenes. The latest round of drama reportedly exploded after a report published by The Guardian. At first, almost nobody paid attention to it. The article reportedly sat quietly for more than a week before the Daily Beast highlighted the key detail, and suddenly the entire story caught fire. Buried inside that report was a claim linked to Harry's camp, saying he wanted to protect Archie and Lilibet's HRH titles so they could one day decide for themselves whether to become working royals or live private lives away from public attention. But according to reports, once that message reached people close to William, the reaction was immediate and intense.
Catherine and William are highly engaged parents. We see this reflected, whereas Harry and Meghan, they just give us these little tidbits, and you just got to wonder, who are the kids with the rest of the time? Because like Link said, Meghan is more than willing to fly off to New York overnight just to go to a play, and most moms don't do that.
One friend of William reportedly told the Daily Beast, "It is actually hilarious that no one noticed it for 10 days. The idea that a vestigial HRH from infancy later entitles you to a working royal role is beyond parody, even for them." The comment may have started with mockery, but insiders say the mood quickly became far more serious, because underneath the controversy was a much bigger concern inside palace circles. Critics believed Harry and Meghan were acting as if the Sandringham Agreement no longer mattered. According to royal insiders, it started looking like the titles could be used whenever beneficial, ignored whenever inconvenient, and possibly kept as long-term royal leverage connected to the children's future identities. To people inside the institution, this reportedly did not look accidental at all. They saw it as calculated, patient, and carefully planned over time. And according to several accounts, that growing belief is what finally pushed William toward making a major decision about the Sussex titles.
King Charles is turning a blind eye, but King William won't.
Harry and the kids are, of course, going to be traded off that. And so Harry has a lot of opportunity to look forward to this in the future, because this is their future. He's basically given up on having any sort of real job. He's not bringing in the money. She kind of sort of is, or attempting to. And so they got nothing. They got nothing but the kids, and to sell the kids basically to the highest bidder, which for Meghan is Instagram.
The reporting from the Daily Beast goes even further. Sources claim that once William becomes king, he could move to issue new letters patent, the same royal legal process used to grant HRH styles in the first place, to formally remove the Sussex family's ability to use those titles altogether. If that happens, it would mark one of the most dramatic royal shakeups in years and send a very clear signal about where the future king stands. What William is reportedly considering would not be some shocking move without precedent. The royal system has handled situations like this before, just in quieter ways. After Princess Diana and Sarah Ferguson divorced, they lost their HRH styles through legal adjustments to royal rules, not through dramatic public confrontations. The changes were made through updated letters patent, a formal constitutional process that left very little room for challenge afterward. Sources now claim William is looking at a similar route, but this time as part of what insiders describe as a wider modernization plan for the monarchy. The reported idea would be simple but powerful. Only active working royals would officially keep the HRH styling going forward. What makes the proposal especially strategic is that it reportedly would not target only Harry and Meghan. Other extended members of the royal family could also be affected, which supporters say would make the move look less personal and more like a broader institutional reform. That kind of approach could help shield the palace from claims of revenge or favoritism.
The truth about Meghan is she will always find a way in which she thinks she can win. And the casualties are irrelevant, whether it's her father, her old best friends, her first husband. There always will be casualties in her life. The question is, when will Harry become the casualty?
Royal watchers have also pointed to Sweden as an important example. King Carl XVI, Gustav, previously removed HRH status from several of his grandchildren as part of an effort to slim down the monarchy. The move was presented not as punishment, but as a clarification of who officially represents the crown and who does not. Palace insiders reportedly believe William sees that model as both practical and modern. For years, William has openly supported the idea of a smaller and more focused monarchy. But according to people close to him, the ongoing Sussex tensions have now turned that long-term vision into something much more personal and urgent. Sources speaking to royal reporters claim William no longer sees the current arrangement as sustainable. From his perspective, continuing to allow titles tied to the monarchy while public criticism of the institution continues creates a situation he reportedly views as impossible to ignore.
Well, you're making me nervous. I want to tell you, in America, a lot of the tabloids are talking about how Harry and Meghan are experiencing difference in their interests and professional paths. Meghan focused on Hollywood, as you just mentioned.
Insiders say that once he becomes king, dealing with the HRH issue could become one of his earliest major decisions. At the center of all this is another question that keeps coming back. Why do the titles still matter so much to Harry and Meghan at all? Over the years, they have repeatedly said royal life brought pressure, frustration, and emotional strain. They described leaving the institution as a path toward freedom and independence. They have built a new public image around life outside the palace walls, presenting themselves as separate from the old royal system while living in California and pursuing projects on their own terms. Yet despite all of that distance, the HRH connection continues to follow the conversation, and critics say that contradiction keeps fueling the controversy surrounding them. The royal connection surrounding Archie and Lilibet has remained a huge part of the Sussex image, even after Harry and Meghan stepped away from royal duties. Critics often point out that the couple's projects, branding, and public identity still carry strong links to the monarchy they once said they wanted distance from. Even the name Archewell traces back to royal roots and personal symbolism tied to their family story. According to people who claim to know Meghan well, the reason the titles still matter is not complicated at all. In elite celebrity circles, status carries enormous value, and royal titles create a level of attention and access that money alone cannot easily buy.
Based on one that wants to be out of the public light, doesn't want his children involved, and that's why we see keep them get the back of their heads, and one that's desperate to utilize that and utilize it.
Sources say that in Hollywood, philanthropy, and high-profile social spaces filled with powerful celebrities and billionaires, the HRH connection still stands out. It is seen by critics as the unique advantage that separates Meghan from countless other public figures competing for influence and relevance. Television deals, interviews, podcasts, and lifestyle projects can generate headlines, but royal identity creates a different level of fascination entirely. Some royal commentators even argue that Archie and Lilibet's royal connection has become part of a much larger long-term strategy tied to the Sussex public image. From that perspective, the children's titles are not just personal family details. They are viewed as part of the future value of the Sussex brand itself, something that could keep public attention alive for many years ahead. And according to reports, that is exactly the situation William may now be preparing to change. If future royal reforms remove the HRH styling entirely, it could dramatically reshape how the Sussex family is publicly connected to the monarchy moving forward. Lost in all the royal politics, media battles, and title debates are two very young children at the center of the storm. Archie is only 6 years old, and Lilibet is just 3. They did not choose the global attention surrounding their family, and they have no control over the public conversations happening around their names. That reality has led many people to compare the Sussex children's situation with Prince William and Princess Catherine's approach to raising George, Charlotte, and Louis. Prince George is 11, Princess Charlotte is 10, and Prince Louis is 7. Like Archie and Lilibet, they also live under enormous public interest.
As her clout dwindled, as people lost interest in what she and Harry had going on, she was going to move to the next generation. That was the final card she had to play, Archie and Lilibet.
But royal watchers often say the way their parents managed that spotlight feels completely different. George, Charlotte, and Louis mainly appear during official royal events or carefully selected family moments connected to the monarchy itself. Observers say those appearances usually feel natural, age-appropriate, and centered around family rather than publicity. William and Catherine are often seen physically beside their children during those moments, interacting with them as parents first. The public has seen playful reactions, awkward moments, and genuine childlike behavior from the Wales children over the years. And many supporters believe that authenticity is part of why those appearances connect so strongly with people. Critics of the Sussex approach argue that the contrast between the two families has become harder to ignore as the title controversy keeps growing louder. Many royal watchers pointed to the Father's Day video released from Montecito as another example of how carefully managed the Sussex media strategy has become. The polished footage appeared just hours after Prince William and Princess Catherine's family drew major global attention during Trooping the Color. Critics quickly noticed the timing and argued the release looked less like a casual family moment and more like a calculated media rollout. The video itself was professionally edited, emotionally framed, and centered heavily around Harry's role as a father. Supporters saw it as heartfelt, but critics viewed it as part of a larger publicity strategy tied to the Sussex image. Either way, the comparisons to the Wales family instantly exploded across social media and royal commentary channels. If William eventually moves forward with the reported HRH changes, the long-term impact could fall most heavily on Archie and Lilibet. Without the HRH styling or a future path into official royal life, the children may grow up separated from the institutional identity their father reportedly hoped to preserve for them. And according to royal commentators, they would also grow up in the shadow of one of the most public family divisions the monarchy has faced in decades. None of that conflict was created by the children themselves, yet their names and futures continue to sit directly in the middle of the controversy. Critics argue that every public statement, every media briefing, and every carefully timed release now adds another layer to that complicated inheritance. The battle over titles has become much bigger than protocol. It is shaping how the next generation of the family could eventually see themselves and their place in royal history.
From exploiting Princess Diana for money and allowing Meghan Markle to exploit Princess Diana for money so she is in some way connected by the public with that amazing woman.
But underneath the title drama is another story entirely, one centered on the growing difference between King Charles and Prince William. According to palace insiders, Charles still approaches Harry first as a father, while William increasingly approaches the situation as a future king focused on protecting the institution. People close to Charles reportedly believe he still hopes some kind of reconciliation remains possible. Despite years of tension, public criticism, interviews, documentaries, and family fallout, insiders say the king has remained cautious about taking actions that could permanently close the door on Harry and Meghan. That hesitation is one reason titles have remained untouched so far. Sources often describe Charles as patient, restrained, and emotionally conflicted about the situation. But when the conversation turns to William, the tone reportedly changes fast. One insider summarized it bluntly: Charles is turning a blind eye. William won't. That difference has become one of the biggest fault lines inside the royal family right now. Charles appears willing to tolerate ambiguity if it keeps hope alive for eventual peace. William, according to people around him, reportedly believes the uncertainty itself has become damaging to the monarchy. And insiders insist William's anger is not emotional chaos or reckless rage. They describe it as controlled, deliberate, and deeply institutional. The claim is that he already knows exactly what changes he wants to make and is simply waiting for the legal authority that comes with the throne. According to those reports, the HRH issue is not viewed as an open debate anymore. Inside William's circle, many allegedly see it as a matter of timing, not possibility. Stepping back from the emotions and headlines, critics of Harry and Meghan say a clear pattern has emerged over the years. First comes an agreement or public commitment, then comes a period where the agreement appears respected. But over time, royal insiders claim the boundaries slowly begin shifting again. They agreed to leave official royal duties behind, yet their royal identity reportedly continued shaping business deals, media attention, and public branding. And according to people close to William, each new controversy has only strengthened his belief that firmer action may eventually be unavoidable.
I also love to shit talk Meghan Markle. I got one from a welder the other day.
No way.
He was like, yeah, like I'm in the shop all the time. I used to catch a ton of shit for listening to your show. And then one day I was like, you got to come over here and hear what the Nerve is saying about Meghan Markle. And they were like, all into it.
Oh, don't mind if we do.
Don't mind if I do.
Harry and Meghan agreed to stop actively using the HRH styling. Yet critics say the title slowly started appearing again in public-facing situations. They also spoke often about wanting privacy for their children, but over time, Archie and Lilibet began showing up more frequently in carefully produced photos and video content tied to the Sussex image. Now, according to royal insiders, the latest discussion about possible future working royal roles for the children has pushed tensions to a completely different level. Critics inside palace circles reportedly see the idea as going far beyond the original Sandringham agreement. To them, it no longer feels like a misunderstanding or a gray area. They allegedly see it as a direct challenge to the institution itself. One royal source speaking to the Daily Beast reportedly put it in brutally simple terms: you cannot trust them. According to insiders, that breakdown of trust did not happen overnight. They claim it has been building steadily over the last 5 years through repeated disputes, public interviews, shifting explanations, and moments where palace officials believed agreements were later reinterpreted. That growing frustration is reportedly why William is no longer interested in negotiating behind closed doors. Sources claim there has been no serious effort to offer Harry another compromise or private ultimatum because, in William's view, that phase is already over. According to people close to him, what comes next is not meant to restart discussions. It is meant to settle the matter completely. Looking at the bigger picture, some royal commentators say the Sussex journey outside the monarchy has become increasingly difficult. The Netflix partnership created massive headlines at first, but critics argued the project struggled to leave a lasting cultural impact. The Spotify deal ended publicly and awkwardly, drawing intense media attention for all the wrong reasons. Harry's memoir generated enormous publicity, but it also deepened divisions inside the royal family and among parts of the public.
And I think that they don't know what to do other than to try and come back to Britain and rebuild themselves as some sort of members of the royal family. And it's all gone wrong for her. And Meghan doesn't like things going wrong for her. And Harry has very little to add to the party. But that isn't enough to satisfy him. So I think there's a huge crisis coming, which will redouble all the problems for King Charles and
Meghan's lifestyle projects have faced mixed reactions, while some of the couple's charitable efforts have attracted questions from critics about long-term results and direction. Several royal reporters have also suggested that Harry and Meghan may now want very different futures. According to those accounts, Harry is believed to prefer a quieter life away from non-stop public battles, while Meghan is still focused on expansion, visibility, branding, and maintaining a major platform in media and celebrity culture. And through all the ups and downs, two things reportedly remain at the center of everything: the children and the royal titles. Critics argue that Archie and Lilibet are appearing more often in carefully managed content connected to the Sussex image, from family videos to branded projects linked to their names and royal background. Meanwhile, the titles themselves are still viewed by many observers as the core of the Sussex public identity. Supporters may see them as part of family heritage, but critics believe they remain the key factor that keeps the couple uniquely valuable in celebrity, media, and global attention circles. If the royal titles disappear, the entire Sussex brand could shift overnight. Critics argue that much of the couple's public power, exclusivity, and global fascination is tied directly to their royal connection. Remove the HRH status permanently through royal decree, and suddenly the image surrounding the Sussex name could look very different, less rare, less untouchable, and potentially far less influential in elite media and celebrity circles. According to insiders, William fully understands that reality. People around him reportedly believe the title issue is not symbolic at all. They see it as central to how Harry and Meghan maintain long-term public value and attention. And some royal watchers now wonder whether the newspaper briefing about Archie and Lilibet's possible future royal roles may have accidentally pushed William closer to making the exact move the Sussexes hope to avoid. But this story goes beyond one family fight or one title dispute. At its core, many royal commentators believe it touches something much bigger about how royal life itself works, and what happens when that system begins breaking down. For centuries, members of the royal family have lived under what insiders often describe as an unwritten bargain. The privileges are enormous: public status, worldwide recognition, historic importance, financial support, security, and a permanent place in national history all come with royal life. But the restrictions are enormous too. The expectation has always been that royals serve steadily, quietly, and consistently.
He is the heir to the throne, and I don't think that there are many companies that really want him to be absolutely disgusted by them. I don't think that's a good idea for anybody, and I would hope that if he couldn't do it via legal things, that actually to be very, very sure. You never know.
But Harry has no shame about this stuff, Angela, does he?
Even when the work is repetitive, exhausting, or lacking glamour, the institution survives because family members accept both sides of that deal rather than choosing only the benefits. According to many reports, Harry once understood that system very well. For years, he appeared comfortable inside the structure of royal duty and public service. And insiders say the monarchy may have been able to handle his departure on its own because other royals throughout history have stepped away before. What reportedly became impossible for William to accept was something different entirely. Critics claim the problem was not leaving the institution, but continuing to benefit from it while publicly criticizing it at the same time. To people inside palace circles, the issue became the combination of walking away from royal obligations while still using royal status, royal identity, and royal connections as part of media projects, branding, interviews, and future plans involving the children. According to sources close to William, that contradiction is what turned disappointment into something much colder and far more permanent. According to royal insiders, that mix of stepping away from the monarchy while still benefiting from royal status is what pushed this situation past the point of repair. Critics say it was never just about Harry and Meghan leaving royal duties. It was the combination of separation, public criticism, and continued use of royal influence that reportedly convinced William the relationship could no longer continue in its current form. And if the reports about William's future plans are accurate, many believe his eventual decisions as king could make that split fully permanent once and for all. But after all the headlines, royal strategy, leaked reports, and non-stop public drama, two major questions still remain. First, should William actually move forward with removing the HRH titles if he becomes king? Some people believe it would finally bring structure and clarity to a situation that has dragged on for years with no clear boundaries. Others argue it could deepen the divide even further and lock the family conflict into royal history forever, because one thing is undeniable at this point. The uncertainty surrounding the Sussexes and the palace has continued hanging over the monarchy since the Sandringham Agreement, creating constant speculation, tension, and public debate. And the second question may be even more important. What about Archie and Lilibet? They are still just children caught in the middle of a conflict they never chose. Whatever opinions people may have about Harry and Meghan, many royal watchers agree the children deserve stability, privacy, and the chance to grow up without carrying the full weight of this family battle on their shoulders. Let me know what you think in the comments, because this debate is only getting bigger. Do you believe William is protecting the monarchy, or do you think the situation has already gone too far? I read the comments carefully, and the conversations here are always fascinating. If you enjoyed this breakdown, make sure to like the video, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you do not miss the next update. And if you know someone following this royal drama closely, send this video their way, because this story is far from over.
You're in America now, and we don't give a shit about you. You're not our fucking prince. You'll never be king. We hate your wife. Stay at home in your $29 million mansion. All right.
There are growing calls to strip Harry and Meghan of their royal titles. The New York Post is reporting that locals in the UK say enough is enough, especially after Prince Harry's disastrous BBC interview, which aired hours after he lost his appeal for taxpayer.
It's not a financial thing. Working royals do not profit. They do not use their names to make money. It's an honour to have an HRH.
Absolutely.
So the fact that she's continued to use this HRH when they've been instructed not to, I think is absolutely infuriating in Buckingham Palace. It was agreed with Queen Elizabeth that they will not use the HRH title. That is a long-standing precedent, and there's good reason for it. Basically, the HRH is only given to working royals and senior members of the royal family.
Oh my God, I can't even. These two, Meghan and Harry, are the worst.
This wasn't just another royal headline. This got serious fast. What started as talk around Prince Harry suddenly turned into a real political move, with an official petition hitting the table. And this wasn't online drama or random noise. This landed right in the middle of UK power. Now people in high positions are actually discussing whether his royal title should be taken away.
Harry's digging an even bigger hole for himself here.
Well, I think he's dug so deep now, he'll strike water any day now.
I just can't stand her. I just think she's such a phony.
Not rumors, not gossip. This is real, and it's happening at the highest level. This move came right out of the House of Lords. And that's not some small circle. That's top-level UK power stepping forward. This time, there's no gossip spin, no palace storytelling trying to smooth things over. The focus is sharp and real, and the tone has completely shifted. Now the talk is about a serious push to remove Prince Harry's royal title, the last string still connecting him to the royal family he walked away from. And if anyone thinks this is just headline drama, think again, because this cuts deeper than that. This is about power, legacy, and one heavy question hanging in the air.
A new poll by Find Out Now has revealed that most of the public is supporting the king in this family feud, ongoing family feud, after Harry's bombshell BBC interview. It follows the Court of Appeal's decision to not overturn the ruling on his security in the UK.
Can someone walk away from royal life, move across the world, build a whole brand off that royal image, and still keep a title tied to the crown? That question is hitting hard right now. This is no longer just a family issue. It's turning into something way bigger, almost like a constitutional clash. The same country that once admired him, the young prince walking behind Princess Diana's coffin, the soldier prince people respected, is now seeing a completely different chapter unfold.
She's slaughtered this weekend because there were some business cards in the back of one of her podcasts. She's still using her royal title, HRH, despite our late Queen warning her again.
And this time, it's not tabloids making noise, it's Parliament stepping in, and that changes everything. What started with the whole Megxit situation has now grown into a full crisis about loyalty, identity, and where Prince Harry truly stands today. If this petition actually goes through, he doesn't just lose a title, he could lose his last official link to the monarchy, and that's massive. At first, it sounded like one of those wild headlines people scroll past because it feels too extreme to be real. But this isn't rumors, it's not internet chatter, and it's not just a trending topic. This is happening inside the House of Lords, one of the oldest and most powerful institutions tied to royal tradition in the UK.
Prince William, he's reportedly furious after it emerged that Meghan Markle is still using her HRH title despite agreeing to drop the title when the Sussexes left royal duties.
Meghan Markle has been very brazen recently with the use of the HRH.
Now there's real discussion about stripping him of the Duke of Sussex title, and this isn't online backlash or people arguing in comment sections. These are senior lawmakers, people who deal with history, power, and long-term impact stepping right into the spotlight. And here's the part that has everyone talking. Harry is reportedly furious. Not slightly bothered, not caught off guard, but genuinely angry because that title isn't just a name, it means something deeper.
I would love reconciliation with my family. I don't know how much longer my father has. He won't speak to me because of this security stuff. But it would be nice to reconcile. If they don't want that, that's entirely up to them.
That title opens serious doors in Hollywood, in business deals, and in elite spaces everywhere he shows up. Take that away, and a lot of that influence could drop fast, almost overnight. This is not some soft warning either. This feels like the first domino tipping in what could become a much bigger collapse of Harry's royal identity. Watching Parliament move like this feels like the system finally drawing a hard line. The prince who was once celebrated everywhere could now be staring down the toughest moment of his public life. And this is not just one politician making noise. The petition behind it blew up quickly. Tens of thousands of people added their names in just days, and the momentum kept building.
He's a duplicitous, self-centered, vile, disloyal hypocrite.
From Sussex all the way up to Scotland, voices across the UK started getting louder. At that point, it stopped sounding like background chatter and started looking like a serious movement gaining ground. Parliament didn't brush it off either. Both the House of Lords and the House of Commons are now pulled into the discussion, and that's when it became clear this situation is getting heavy. And it doesn't stop there. Things take an even sharper turn here.
But she said she was in the trenches. She alludes to being in the trenches when she was in the British royal family. Girl, you lived in a castle. Like, you got a princess title. People were falling at your feet. People would run your bathwater for you. I mean, I could list the things, the perks. I could list them forever. The trenches, she has got to, the Delulu is on another level. Sometimes I end.
The push against Harry is no longer just about public frustration or heated opinions. Critics are now pointing to an actual law with deep history behind it. It's called the Titles Deprivation Act of 1917, a law so old it hasn't really been used since World War I. Back then, it gave the crown power to strip royal titles from family members seen as acting against Britain. That shows just how serious this law is. Now people are bringing it back into the spotlight, arguing that while Harry's actions may not technically break laws, to many it feels damaging to the institution itself. Across the country, frustration has been quietly building and now it's spilling out.
It's not a financial thing. Working royals do not profit. They do not use their names to make money. It's an honour to have an HRH.
Absolutely.
So the fact that she's continued to use this HRH when they've been instructed not to, I think is absolutely infuriating in Buckingham Palace. It was agreed with Queen Elizabeth that they will not use the HRH title. That is a long-standing precedent, and there's good reason for it. Basically, the HRH is only given to working royals and senior members of the royal family.
A lot of people feel worn out watching someone criticize the monarchy while still benefiting from the prestige tied to a royal title. To them, this goes beyond personal issues or disrespect. It raises a bigger question. Can someone step away from royal duties, speak openly against the institution, and still carry that royal label everywhere? What started as public criticism is now turning into real political pressure, and when public opinion starts lining up with lawmakers, things can shift very fast.
There is no trust when it comes to Prince Harry. And the picture he tries to paint with Queen Elizabeth, even saying during that BBC interview that the Queen wanted him to have this level of security, we're finding out the truth. And it's that she was bothered by them.
But here's where the controversy really spikes. After leaving the UK, Harry didn't fade into a quiet private life. Instead, he became very vocal, especially in interviews and appearances in the United States. That caught a lot of attention fast. Traditionally, members of the British royal family are expected to stay politically neutral, but critics argue Harry stepped into topics that feel highly political and that instantly made everything far more complicated. Some lawmakers and commentators have started throwing around a sharp phrase, title laundering.
But of course, the real measure of success of both of them will be the same as it always has been. How much damage can they inflict on our royal family, on our monarchy? I said it before, I'll say it again tonight. King Charles should strip them of all their remaining titles and cast them out from any connection to the royal family. How could any of them trust them as far as I could throw them? Because without it, they're just whining millennial windbags with a permanent victim complex, knowing that victimhood is what makes them all the money.
What they mean is the idea that Harry could be using the power and influence of a royal title while speaking out on political and social issues overseas. For many traditional royal watchers, that crosses a serious line, no question about it. British royals have always stayed far away from political fights, especially outside the UK. That's been an unwritten rule for generations. Yet Harry still holds the Duke of Sussex title, and that direct link to the crown keeps this whole situation heating up more and more every day. Now, this is no longer quiet talk behind palace walls. Members of Parliament are stepping forward publicly and asking a straight-up question. Why is a British duke living abroad weighing in on American political debates? That question is hitting hard in political circles.
Major breaking news out of London. Buckingham Palace announcing Harry and Meghan will no longer formally represent the Queen. That means they will no longer receive public funds and they will stop using their royal titles. Those changes will take effect this spring.
For many officials, this goes way beyond simple etiquette. They argue this could turn into a serious issue if royal titles start getting dragged into political debates overseas. Because once a royal title starts being seen as a political tool, critics warn the entire system protecting the monarchy's neutrality could start to shake. From Harry's side, he may feel like he's just speaking openly about issues he cares about. But inside Parliament, some leaders are reading it very differently. To them, it looks like the boundaries around royal titles are being pushed and tested in real time. And now the response is getting stronger. Lawmakers are digging into historic laws, long-standing royal traditions, and the limits of what someone with a royal title should actually be doing.
She is relentless, she is shameless, and she is exhausting. You are not a successful female entrepreneur.
This is no longer casual criticism. This is turning into something structured and serious. At the same time, many observers point out that after stepping back from royal duties, Harry didn't stay quiet about the monarchy. He kept speaking publicly again and again. From the explosive Oprah interview to the Netflix series and later his memoir, Spare, he opened up about deeply personal experiences inside royal life. At first, millions were curious. People wanted to hear his side. The attention was huge, and the world was watching closely. But as time went on, critics started saying that the constant stream of revelations about family tensions began pushing things into uncomfortable territory. Some longtime supporters are now saying the repeated criticism of family members, including his father, his brother, and others in the royal household, has shifted the tone.
A progressive new role within the royal family. While the royal family does modernize, I mean, the Queen sends tweets, it is an age-old institution, and I think that idea of tradition and everything we expect of the monarchy doesn't quite sit well with that idea.
The hypocrisy is beyond anything I've ever seen.
What once felt like honesty to some now feels to others more like an ongoing public feud that keeps getting bigger. And the more these stories spread, the more pressure builds around Harry's royal title. Now Parliament is openly saying what many across the UK have been thinking for a while. The message from critics is direct. You can't walk away from royal duties, speak against the institution over and over, and still expect to carry the same royal title like nothing changed. Lawmakers and commentators argue that Prince Harry continues using the Duke of Sussex title while living in California and speaking openly about the monarchy. To them, that creates a clear contradiction that's hard to ignore. Some members of Parliament are even describing the situation in strong terms. They say this is not about breaking laws or criminal behavior, but about symbolism, tradition, and respect for the institution that granted that title in the first place.
A new poll by Find Out Now has revealed that most of the public is supporting the King in this family feud, ongoing family feud, after Harry's bombshell BBC interview. It follows the Court of Appeal's decision to not overturn the ruling on his security in the UK.
William is reportedly formulating a plan to finally strip Prince Harry and Meghan Markle of their HRH title.
For years, the monarchy mostly stayed quiet while all this played out. But now, with politicians stepping in, it's starting to look like patience inside parts of Parliament is running thin. And when lawmakers begin speaking this openly, people start paying very close attention, because this is no longer subtle. Public opinion across the UK has also been shifting, and it's becoming harder to ignore. Several polls now suggest a growing number of people believe Harry should no longer hold the Duke of Sussex title. Some surveys even show more than half of respondents backing that idea, and the numbers climb even higher among older and more traditional voters. What really makes this situation stand out is what's happening in Sussex itself, the very place tied to his title. People there have been signing petitions and speaking out more and more. One resident said something that spread fast. "He doesn't represent us anymore. He represents himself." That line hit hard because it reflects how many critics now see the situation.
It's my pleasure. It's a big news story. As you can imagine over here, it really has, the phone hasn't stopped ringing, put it that way.
And in terms of your initial reaction to this latest news, that in fact it feels like it's a full removal in the sense of not just senior royal duties, but
we'll see King Charles do this because he's not confrontational. I don't think that he likes the fact that he's been accused of racism towards his grandchildren in Omid Scobie's book. So I think he's going to continue to tiptoe.
While Harry still draws attention and support in parts of the United States, the mood back in the UK feels very different now. It's not one-sided anymore. It's divided, and in some circles, the tone has turned much sharper. For many critics, the frustration isn't just about Harry stepping away from royal duties. Most people understand that was his choice. The real issue, according to commentators and lawmakers, is what came after. They believe he left the system, criticized it publicly, and still benefits from the recognition tied to the royal name.
Brothers surrounding Prince Harry and Prince William, and what this change in senior roles for Harry and Meghan means for that particular relationship.
We immediately went into the trenches together.
Yeah. To them, it feels like trying to stand in two worlds at once, and that's where the tension really builds. And more people are starting to say that situation can't last forever. Even some who once defended Harry are now shifting their stance. They argue it's not about one moment or one interview, it's the buildup over time. Years of headlines, major interviews, personal stories, documentaries, and media appearances, all centered around conflict with the monarchy, have added up. Critics say that constant spotlight on royal drama has slowly but seriously changed public opinion across Britain. The mood, according to many observers, has hardened, and it's not softening anytime soon. The message being repeated by some voters is direct. If someone chooses to leave the royal institution and openly challenge it, they shouldn't keep a title that represents it. That feeling is getting louder, and it's starting to carry real weight.
Now, Meghan, just last week, she did her first long-form sit-down podcast interview. She showed a basket that she had sent to the host of the podcast as a thank you for allowing her to come on. And here you can kind of zoom in here, and it says, with the compliments of Her Royal Highness, the Duchess of Sussex.
Harry and Meghan, they have an issue when it comes to their memory and when it comes to the truth.
That's why the pressure inside Parliament isn't happening in isolation. Lawmakers are reacting to a wave of public frustration that's been building across the country for a while now. Then there's the business side of this whole situation, and this is where things get even more intense. Harry and Meghan have signed major media deals over the past few years, including projects with Netflix, Spotify, and publishing ventures. Critics are quick to point out that the titles Duke and Duchess of Sussex often show up in headlines tied to those deals. To skeptics, that doesn't look random at all, it looks intentional. And that perception is exactly what has pushed this controversy to a boiling point. Some critics have even started using another sharp phrase, title trafficking. What they mean is the idea that royal status is being used to boost books, documentaries, and major media deals, while at the same time presenting a life that's meant to be more private.
What the monarchy means for the monarchy.
Well, people are talking about it being a constitutional crisis, and I'm not sure it is a constitutional crisis. I mean, through circumstance and the Cambridges having 3 children, Harry slipped down from being the spare to the heir to the 6th.
That argument has been spreading everywhere across talk shows, newspapers, and even political debates. To those critics, the situation feels completely contradictory, and they believe the public is no longer ignoring it. Another point that keeps coming up is the continued use of royal titles within the family itself. Even though Harry and Meghan stepped away from official duties, those titles connected to them still appear in headlines and public conversations all the time, and that keeps this entire debate alive and getting louder. Supporters say titles are tied to heritage and identity, something that goes way beyond headlines.
With King Charles on his way out, Prince William is expected to take over the crown. And apparently at the top of his list is to say, "Peace out, Meghan, you're done." And he plans to formally strip Meghan Markle of her royal title.
But critics see it very differently, and they're not holding back. To them, it sends mixed signals, making the royal exit look less like a clean break and more like a carefully planned brand move. And that right there is why some voices in Parliament are saying this situation needs to be addressed clearly and directly. For many lawmakers, royal titles were never meant to be used as marketing tools, not even close. Historically, those titles stand for duty, service, and a deep connection to the monarchy itself. So when critics argue that a title is being used mainly to boost media influence, the reaction hits hard and fast. Some commentators are even saying it makes the title feel less like a historic honor and more like a promotional label. And for traditional royal watchers, that crosses a serious line.
There has been a crisis in the Windsors, not least how the Sussexes chose to release this news, but also the narrative that we've had in the fallout that the couple were very unhappy, that apparently it was a very toxic environment, particularly for Meghan.
What makes everything even more intense is the response, or lack of it, from the palace. Buckingham Palace has stayed mostly silent through all of this. King Charles III hasn't publicly stepped in to defend Harry in this debate, and that silence is speaking volumes to many observers. A lot of royal watchers believe this is completely intentional. Instead of it looking like a father stepping into a personal dispute, the palace may be letting the system handle it, Parliament, public opinion, and royal tradition all playing their part. Then there's Prince William, who many believe is focused on protecting the monarchy's long-term stability above everything else.
The hypocrisy is beyond anything I've ever seen.
Reports from royal commentators suggest he hasn't pushed back publicly against the political discussion either, and that silence is being noticed. For him, and for many inside royal circles, this may not even be about family conflict anymore. It's about protecting the institution and making sure it holds strong moving forward. If Parliament ever decided to actually remove the Duke of Sussex title, the impact would be massive, no question about it. This wouldn't just be a small technical change on paper, it could completely reshape Harry's public identity and how he's seen across the world. The influence, the royal connection, the sense of mystery around the title, all of that could shift overnight, and that possibility is exactly why people are watching this so closely. Critics say the entire public image surrounding Harry and Meghan has leaned heavily on royal drama rather than royal duty.
Now, a staggering 2/3 of Brits are calling for Harry and Meghan to be stripped of their HRH titles.
Brat, to be honest, and very, very entitled.
The interviews, the major deals, the documentaries, many commentators argue that the royal connection sits right at the center of it all. In their view, the global fascination comes directly from that link to the monarchy. And if that title were ever removed, they believe the entire narrative would change instantly. Without the Duke and Duchess of Sussex titles, some critics argue the couple would be seen more as public figures sharing personal experiences rather than figures tied to a royal legacy. Supporters strongly push back on that idea, of course, but inside political and royal circles, the debate has clearly intensified and isn't slowing down. For some lawmakers, this issue isn't just about tradition anymore. It's becoming something much bigger, and the pressure to address it is only getting stronger. This whole debate is really about one big question. Should royal titles still carry power and influence if the connection to the monarchy has completely changed? That's the core issue driving everything right now. And that's exactly why discussions in Parliament are starting to focus on protecting the institution itself above all else.
He's a duplicitous, self-centered, vile, disloyal hypocrite.
History shows this kind of move isn't impossible either. Back in 1917, King George V approved the Titles Deprivation Act, and that law allowed royal titles to be stripped from family members who supported countries that were enemies of Britain during wartime. That moment proved something important. In rare and serious situations, both the monarchy and the government can step in when they believe the integrity of royal titles is at risk. There are also more recent examples that show how quickly royal status can shift. Prince Andrew stepped back from royal duties and lost military roles and patronages after major public controversy. Moments like that reinforce a message historians repeat often. The monarchy as an institution always comes before any individual member, no matter who they are. Now, some members of parliament are openly questioning whether Harry should still hold a royal title while living overseas and speaking critically about the monarchy. They argue the legal framework already exists. Public debate is growing louder, and the issue deserves serious attention.
Lady who's very popular for being off.
And if anything were to actually move forward, it wouldn't happen through headlines or online noise alone. It would go through formal procedures, debates inside historic chambers, legal reviews, and official decisions made behind closed doors. This would be structured, calculated, and impossible to ignore. If the Duke of Sussex title were ever removed, it wouldn't just be symbolic. It would mark a massive turning point in the long and complicated relationship between Prince Harry and the monarchy. After the interviews, the memoir, the podcast, and even legal disputes, many observers believe this moment could define the entire saga. For years, this conflict has played out across global headlines, but now it has shifted into something far more serious. It's no longer just media coverage, it's entered political institutions and national debate, and that raises the stakes completely. If Parliament ever decided to act, it would signal a dramatic moment where a centuries-old system draws a firm line under one of its most controversial chapters. Critics argue Harry didn't just step away quietly from royal life. In their view, he left and then continued challenging the monarchy publicly through interviews, media projects, and his memoir, Spare. That constant spotlight on royal conflict helped turn him into a powerful global voice for some audiences. But for others, especially back in the UK, it created deep frustration and disappointment, and now those feelings are driving louder calls for change. Supporters still stand firmly behind him, saying he has every right to speak about his own life and experiences. But critics see this debate as something much bigger than personal disagreements. To them, this is about legitimacy, identity, and who truly represents the values tied to the monarchy itself. That's why this petition and the political pressure around it feels so symbolic to so many people. For those signing their names, it's not just about removing a title, it's about sending a clear message. They believe Harry no longer represents them or the institution he was once part of, and they want that reflected officially. Meanwhile, the monarchy itself continues to stay mostly silent, and in royal history, silence can carry serious meaning. Now, with Parliament fully pulled into the conversation, the next phase of this story could reshape Harry's relationship with the crown in ways few people expected just a few years ago. One thing is certain, the world is watching closely, and the next move could change everything. If you found this breakdown interesting, hit like, subscribe, and share this with someone following the royal story. And now the big question, do you think Harry should keep his title or should it be taken away? Drop your thoughts below.
The Daily Mail blast Prince Harry, calling him sneaky, dangerous, a deluded narcissist, a threat to national security, and a spoiled child.
When the Daily Mail, the most widely read English-language newspaper on the entire planet, runs a piece on a member of the royal family and uses the word dangerous, that's not a slip. That's not casual phrasing. That's a deliberate, considered word choice from a paper that has been documenting this story for years. They didn't say embarrassing. They didn't say ill-judged. They didn't say diplomatically inconvenient. They didn't say tone-deaf or unwise or any of the soft language that royal commentary usually defaults to when the topic is a sitting member of the family. They said dangerous.
Has a big impact on the British national interest and on our national security, which is why She has used the word dangerous. The Daily Mail are calling Harry dangerous. And that's exactly what he...
And the woman who put that word into print, Sarah Louise Robertson, isn't some random commentator chasing clicks. She's been building this case story by story across the entire post-Megxit period. She's not someone who reaches for the strongest available word lightly. So when she lands on dangerous, and her own paper backs it up by publishing it under that framing, you have to actually stop and ask why. Because the reasoning behind that word is the part nobody on the celebrity defense side wants to engage with. And it's the part that explains exactly where this whole thing is heading next. It's also the part that, once you understand it, you can't unsee.
And it's a disaster. So Charles has got to go there now, pick up the pieces, fix things with Donald Trump. Mrs. President, I'm so sorry about my son's frightful, strange behaviour. He thinks he's a war hero, you know. He goes to Ukraine, he thinks he's a war hero. He was in a helicopter for 10 minutes, like a kid that won a competition.
The case Robertson is making isn't really about Harry the man. It's not about whether you like him personally. It's not about whether you sympathize with his upbringing or his marriage or his family drama. It's about the institution. And it's something a lot of casual observers have honestly never quite grasped, even after 5 years of this story unfolding in public. Harry still has the title. He's still a prince. He's still in the line of succession. He still carries the institutional weight of being a British royal, globally, automatically, every single time he walks into a room, whether or not he's officially representing the crown in that moment. The title doesn't take the day off when he wants it to. When he walks into a security forum in Kyiv and stands at a podium and tells America that it has to honor its treaty obligations to Ukraine, the headlines around the world don't say private citizen makes statement at conference. They say Prince Harry calls on the United States. Every outlet, every language, every time, the name does the work, the title does the work, the institutional adjacency does the work. Whether he claims it in that moment or not is irrelevant because the world hears the prince, not the man.
To be assassinated, and so he goes and puts himself in the danger zone in that way, and then throws insults back at us, at the British people, by saying Britain isn't a safe place for him to bring his children. The insults that he does every time he does one of these, what he sees as PR missions to show what he's about, he ends up insulting us even more. You just think, Harry, if you're trying to get back in.
But here's where it gets dangerous. And this is the exact reasoning Robertson keeps coming back to. The reasoning her critics on the celebrity press side keep failing to refute. He carries all of that institutional weight. He has none of the institutional accountability that's supposed to come with it. He wasn't elected by anyone. He doesn't answer to any government. He has no foreign policy brief from the Foreign Office. The palace did not authorize what he said. The UK government wasn't consulted. There's no oversight, no coordination, no protocol, no chain of command, no diplomatic clearance. Just a guy with a royal title, on his own, flying into an active war zone and making geopolitical statements on behalf of a country he stopped officially representing in January 2020. Robertson called it the weak link problem. I'd call it something even simpler. It's an unlicensed driver behind the wheel of an enormous, heavily armored vehicle. The vehicle is real. The weight of it is real. The damage it can do is real. There's just nobody actually accountable for how it's being driven, where it's being driven, or who it might run into. That's what Robertson means when she says dangerous. And once you actually read the argument, you realize it's not hyperbole at all. It's diagnosis.
And she's so right. She says he threw away everything he had. Sarah Louise, you're going to see her in just a second. Harry's undermining Charles and undermining William. The other killer line, she says there's a sneakiness to this and a slyness. Harry is sneaky and sly, and I totally agree with that.
And then you've got the security side of this whole thing, which is the part that should genuinely make people stop scrolling for a second. Harry has been to Ukraine 3 separate times. He keeps showing up in conflict zones. He keeps appearing in war-adjacent contexts. He keeps putting himself repeatedly in places where someone with his exact profile, British royal, internationally famous, instantly recognizable, holding a title that links directly to the head of state of a NATO power, is genuinely a target. Working royals, actual working royals, the ones still inside the institutional framework, do not just wander into these environments. There are protocols. There are entire teams. There's coordination with the security services on both sides. There are protection arrangements that exist for very specific reasons that have been tested and refined over decades, because the consequences of getting it wrong are not theoretical. Harry has none of that. He goes, in Robertson's exact phrase, without permission, without government coordination, without the protection arrangements that his status as a visible British royal makes necessary. He goes with his own private security team and his own private logistics and his own private agenda, and that's it. The risk of kidnap is real. The risk of assassination is real. The risk of him being used as a lever, political, financial, diplomatic, by someone who fully understands how valuable a captured British prince would be on the global stage. That risk is also real.
So now what Harry's doing, Sarah Louise Robertson is right on two fronts. So she said he's upstaging his father, but he's also destroying Charles and destroying the royal family. It's not enough to compete with the royal family. They want to destroy.
All of it is being managed by his personal team, with no institutional oversight, no government coordination, and no formal protection from any of the agencies whose job it would normally be to protect a member of the royal family in a conflict zone. If something happens to him, the British government has no contingency plan, the palace has no operational role, he's running his own foreign policy and his own security operations simultaneously, and the entire country is just supposed to hope quietly in the background that nothing goes wrong. That isn't just irresponsible at a personal level. That's exactly the kind of thing a head of state and a foreign secretary have to actively worry about every time he gets on a plane. It creates a vulnerability the institution can't manage and can't constrain. And that's before you even get to the diplomatic damage that comes with whatever he says when he gets there. And then Trump, of all people, weighed in. And the way he handled it, frankly, told you everything you need to know about how seriously the United States takes Harry's geopolitical commentary. When a journalist asked him about Harry's Ukraine statements, Trump didn't engage with the substance. He didn't argue the policy point, he didn't get irritated, he didn't even bother with sarcasm, which is unusual for him. He just brushed it off entirely, the way you'd brush off a question about something that doesn't really matter. His exact words were, "How's he doing? How's his wife? Please give her my regards." Prince Harry isn't speaking for the UK, that's for sure.
Old El Trumpo, the orange one, he loves Team Wales. Trump is on Team Wales. Trump loves the King and he loves William.
I think I'm speaking for the UK more than Prince Harry. Read that again, slowly. From the Oval Office. About a member of the British royal family. 2 days before the King of the United Kingdom is supposed to land in Washington for a state visit. From a president who has had a public, well-documented personal dislike of Harry for years. That's not casual. That's not throwaway. That's a calibrated message delivered with surgical precision to the journalists in the room, to the British delegation already preparing to fly out, to the palace, and most importantly, to anyone watching on either side of the Atlantic who still believes that Harry's voice carries diplomatic weight in the United States. It doesn't. The President of the United States just said so, on the record, in front of cameras, and then immediately moved on to the next question. Now, to be fair, Trump and Charles do have a genuinely warm working relationship. Trump has been consistently positive about William and the working royals, in ways that actually underline rather than contradict his dismissal of Harry.
Family, 6 years ago, you walked out, and the Queen, your late grandmother, told you, you can't have 1 foot in and 1 foot out, half and half, doing what you say is your royal duties, your royal chores. And this is another thing Harry's trying to do. He's trying to say he can still be royal and do royal work.
The state visit went ahead. Whatever needed to be repaired in the private meeting at the White House, held in the format Charles preferred, away from cameras, almost certainly was. But Charles still had to walk into that room. He still had to do the diplomacy. He still had to do it with the noise of his son's Ukraine statements hanging in the air, the headlines circulating, the footage of Trump dismissing Harry already going viral on every platform. That's the cost. That's what Harry's I'll just go give a quick speech in Kyiv actually purchases in the real world. Real diplomatic damage at the most diplomatically sensitive moment available. Not in the abstract. In Washington, in the Oval Office, in front of the cameras Charles was trying to navigate. And here's where Robertson's framing hits the hardest. She called it a scorched earth policy. Once you actually look at the timing of the Ukraine visit, you can't really call it anything else. Harry had just gotten back from Australia. The tour over there had been a documented disaster from start to finish. The polling was brutal, 81% disapproval in the Roy Morgan numbers, which is a figure you almost never see in mainstream polling on a public figure who isn't already convicted of something. The footage of empty barricades nobody bothered to stand behind. The clothing being listed for sale on Bondi Beach with the kids' titles still in the descriptions. The 30-minute retreat. The Jonathan Brady pool photographs. Commercially, it didn't deliver. Visually, it looked desperate. Optically, it was a humiliation. So what does he do the moment he steps off the plane? He gets jet-lagged off one international flight and immediately gets onto another one heading straight to Kyiv. Why? Robertson's read on it, and she's clearly correct, once you actually map the timeline, is that the timing was completely deliberate. He needed to land in Ukraine, give the speech, generate the global headlines, and reset the entire narrative before Charles touched down in Washington.
Rejected. How good is Lee Cohen? He goes on to say Harry talks about his service, yet walked away from duty, trashed the institution that gives him relevance in public, and now repurposes its prestige for personal crusades. These are some of the cleverest words I've ever heard about Harry. He goes on to say, Harry is a walking liability. When will the palace or parliament take the necessary action to cut his wings and prevent further damage? He's nailed.
Australia gave him bad press. Kyiv gave him a war zone, a global stage, the chance to invoke his mother's legacy with the landmines visit, and the ability to upstage his father at the most diplomatically sensitive moment available on the calendar. The Australia trip had produced terrible polling and diminishing commercial returns. Kyiv provided the reset, new footage, a new global platform, the kind of war zone gravitas that Australia's clothing listings and empty retreats had completely failed to generate. And it just so happened to coincide perfectly with Charles's most exposed moment of the year. That's not jet lag. That's not coincidence. That's not Harry being noble. That's calculation. And here's where it actually gets strange, because the question royal commentators keep circling back to is whether Harry is genuinely that strategic, or whether he's just stumbling into these moments on instinct without really understanding what he's doing.
It's dangerous that it has implications for the British national interest and national security. Why? Well, because you've got a leading member of the royal family, Harry, who, by the way, has torn up his agreement with Elizabeth about not being an active frontline serving royal. Remember, the Queen said you can't be in or out. It's one or the other. You can't be half in, half out. Well, he's torn that up, and now he's entered geopolitics.
Tom Sykes and the Royal News Network framed it almost perfectly. He's too dim to know what he's doing, yet doing it consistently in ways that serve specific interests. That's the paradox at the heart of his post-Megxit conduct. The Ukraine timing, the "I will always be part of the royal family" line, the constant invocation of Diana at every single landmine walk, none of that reads like the random output of someone with no plan. It reads like someone who, at least on instinct, understands exactly which buttons to press to keep the commercial operation running. He may not be reading the chessboard 15 moves ahead, he may not be modeling downstream consequences, but he absolutely knows which piece to push to make headlines. The stupidity and the calculation actually coexist in a very specific way. Harry understands the broad strategy: make a statement, generate headlines, claim institutional status, upstage the institution at diplomatically sensitive moments, without always understanding the specific downstream consequences of each tactical move. He understands that going to Ukraine before the state visit generates headlines. He doesn't fully model how those headlines land in the Oval Office, how Trump uses them, how they complicate Charles's arrival, or how the footage of Trump swatting him aside is going to circulate for weeks afterward. He understands the move. He doesn't understand the board. That's Robertson's engaged brain phrase in its most precise operational form. Not that Harry lacks intelligence in the broad sense, but that he consistently fails to engage in the downstream modeling that would tell him how his specific actions actually land in specific contexts beyond his own immediate perception of them. He saw Kiev as a way to be significant, to be somewhere, to invoke Diana, to claim his humanitarian legacy on a stage that would generate global coverage.
And the second they get married, suddenly the royal family are a horrible bunch of, intolerant thugs. They're very uncaring all of a sudden. The British press is suddenly really wicked and consumed with prejudice. The United Kingdom's unfriendly and horrible and ugly. The family are dreadful. She turns Harry against his own family and his country of birth and the institution of the royal.
He did not model Trump dismissing him like a fly in the Oval Office 2 days before the king arrived. Now here's a layer most people don't even know about yet. And it is absolutely coming. Harry holds a senior role at African Parks. That's a conservation organization that has been investigated over genuinely serious allegations in the territories where it operates, including human trafficking and assault by rangers and security personnel either employed directly or supervised by the organization. Read that sentence again. Senior role, human trafficking allegations, assault allegations, active investigation. Any future tour Harry does in Africa, and there have been clear signals one is being planned, designed to reset his image after the Australian disaster, the same way Kiev was, is going to invite hard questions about African parks, about what he knew, about when he knew it, about whether holding a senior position at an organization currently under that kind of investigation is actually consistent with the humanitarian image the tour will inevitably be trying to sell. That's not a question the managed narrative is going to wave away with a soft-focus documentary, a few aerial drone shots, and a Diana reference. It's a real question. It's documented. It's coming. And when it lands, the conversation around it is not going to be pretty for Harry or for the operation. But here's the line that broke this entire week wide open. The one Robertson, Tom Sykes, the Daily Mail, and basically every serious royal commentator zeroed in on the moment it left his mouth. From the Kiev Security Forum, on camera, in front of the global press, Harry said, "I will always be part of the royal family." And then, just to make sure nobody could miss the point, he added that he was, quote, "doing the very thing I was born to do."
Surely won't forget now Harry's treachery, his wicked selfishness, his arrogance, his cruelty, his stupidity.
That single sentence, those two sentences together, is the most direct, public, on-camera challenge to the Sandringham Agreement that Harry has ever made. Tom Sykes called it perfectly. Harry is daring his father, the king, to formally strip the titles. The dare is real. It is explicit. It is on camera. It is in the global record. It is not a comment buried in a memoir or a vague reference in an interview. It is a declaration delivered from a security forum in a war zone with the world watching. And so far, the institutional response has been almost entirely quiet. The Sandringham Christmas invitation has been withdrawn, communicated through sourced reporting rather than a formal statement. That is, so far, the totality of the response. No formal palace announcement. No order in council. No update to the royal family's official website. No removal of the listing. Just a private signal communicated to journalists who know how to read it. Robertson's closing line directly to Harry, published in the Daily Mail, was as direct as anything you will ever read in royal commentary. You threw it away. You didn't give up your royal duty. You threw it away. And that's the entire post-Megxit story, compressed into one sentence. The Queen, the late Queen, his grandmother, gave him a choice in January 2020. He made the choice. He left. He picked California. He picked the commercial operation, the Oprah interview, the Netflix series, the Spare memoir, the Australian tour, the Kiev speech. Every single one of them, without exception, is just the same choice from January 2020 being repeated, amplified, and broadcast.
So I'm told that Harry's been on the phone non-stop, desperately lobbying to see his old man. But a furious Sussex spokesperson told Fox News in America that there will be no meeting
as it's a state visit, not a holiday. You heard me right.
Standing on a stage in Kiev 5 years later and announcing that he is still a working royal does not undo the choice he made in 2020. It just makes the gap between what he says and what he is actually doing impossible for any honest observer to ignore. And that gap is now, by any measure, massive. Documented, public, permanent. Robertson laid it out from the Daily Mail's institutional position. Trump dismissed him from the Oval Office on the record. The Sandringham invite is gone. YouGov has him at 30% approval in the UK. Roy Morgan has him at 81% disapproval in Australia. And his own words, "I will always be part of the royal family, doing the very thing I was born to do," are now permanently in the record, sitting in the global archive next to every single piece of evidence that contradicts them. The permanent record doesn't change. That's the thing about it that Robertson, building it story by story over years, understands better than almost anyone. It doesn't change. It only accumulates. And what has accumulated about Harry's conduct since January 2020 is now the most comprehensive case for formal institutional response that the entire post-Megxit period has produced. Every single one of those data points is now sitting in the permanent record alongside the Kiev Declaration. Every contradiction is documented. Every receipt is filed. The Andrew comparison is the one that keeps coming up in serious analysis, and there's a reason for it. When Andrew became a vulnerability to the institution, through the Epstein Association, the Virginia Giuffre lawsuit, the catastrophic BBC interview, the institution eventually responded. The Royal Highness style was withdrawn. He was removed from official duties. The public institutional role ended.
Yeah, that the royal family need to bring Harry back to fix the royal brand. Here's what the insider says. The insider says that sickens William, and he doesn't feel like he's being given any say in this because his father is humouring these opinions, allowing these opinions, and edging closer to signing off on what he perceives will be a disaster. So William is so worried.
It took too long in the view of most observers. The damage was significant, but it eventually happened. And the mechanism that made it happen was the same constitutional power Lady Colin Campbell has been pointing at for Harry's situation: the sovereign's authority to determine who carries the institutional designations. Harry's case is structurally different from Andrew's in specific ways that the analysis acknowledges without fully resolving. Andrew's conduct was personal and legal. The Epstein Association, the Giuffre lawsuit, the BBC interview that was itself a disaster from the first question to the last. Harry's conduct is political and institutional. The unilateral claim to working royal status, the unauthorized geopolitical statements, the commercial exploitation of institutional proximity. The damage is different in character, more diffuse, more ongoing, less legally specific. There's no single court case or single criminal allegation that defines it. Instead, it's a 5-year accumulation of unauthorized statements, unauthorized travel, unauthorized commercial deals, unauthorized declarations of status. But Robertson's argument is that diffuse and ongoing damage, accumulated over 5 years, and now reaching the point of weekly international incidents, has crossed exactly the same threshold Andrew's situation eventually did. The only difference is whether the institution will recognize it and respond formally, through an order in council, through a palace statement, through the website update, or whether it will keep absorbing each incident privately while the record keeps growing in public. The threshold being reached is not the same thing as the institution recognizing it has been reached. That's the gap the Sandringham invitation withdrawal represents. The institution internally has clearly recognized that something has changed. Pamela Frolick's sourced characterization called the Australian tour the straw that broke the camel's back. The Ukraine speech, the "I will always be part of the royal family" declaration, represents a further threshold past that one. The question now is whether the institution's recognition of those thresholds will produce a formal institutional response, or whether it will continue to be absorbed and signaled privately. And that's really the question Robertson is asking, the one nobody at the palace seems willing to answer out loud. At what point does absorbing become endorsing? At what point does the institution's continued failure to formally respond become, by default, an implicit acceptance of the conduct? The royal website still lists Harry and Meghan. The titles are still there. The most explicit challenge to the Sandringham Agreement in 5 years was met with a withdrawn Christmas invitation communicated through sourced reporting. That is the gap. That is the thing Robertson has been documenting, story by story, year by year. And it's now reaching a point where the institution either acts formally or admits, by silence, that there is nothing left to act on. Robertson ended her piece with a message directly to Harry. If you want to come back, eat humble pie. Apologize to everyone, hold your hands up, admit you can't do this. If that is sincere, then we'll start looking at things. That is the path available to him. It is not the path he is taking. The path he is taking is Kyiv's security forums and Diana invocations and "I will always be part of the royal family" declarations, beamed out into the global record while his father is doing the actual diplomatic work in Washington. The studio response in the Daily Mail discussion, when Robertson floated the possibility of genuine contrition from Harry, was 3 words: pigs might fly. And the permanent record supports that assessment completely. The Ukrainian reception of all this adds a layer the managed narrative does not address, and frankly, doesn't want addressed. Ukrainian commentators and viewers responding to the coverage of Harry's visit have not uniformly welcomed it. The observation that the suffering of the Ukrainian people is being used as a backdrop for clicks and a photo opportunity, as Mark Dolan put it, is also reflected in a lot of the Ukrainian responses themselves. The specific suffering of a people engaged in an existential war with a nuclear power is not enhanced by a former British royal walking through a demined field and invoking his mother's Angola visit from 30 years ago. It may be motivated by genuine personal feeling on his part. The observable, measurable impact on the ground is a content generation exercise for a commercial operation that requires constant visibility to keep functioning. Robertson's argument that Harry puts William and Charles in danger, the way Andrew did, through his vulnerability to the wrong people, is the institutional security argument in its most precise form. When someone with the profile, the title, and the institutional associations Harry carries operates in conflict zones, without government oversight, without coordination with the security services, without the protection protocols that working royals observe in sensitive environments, he creates a vulnerability that extends far beyond his own personal safety. The people who would happily use Harry as a lever against the British government or the British royal family now have a visible, accessible, uncontrolled target that the institution cannot protect and cannot constrain. That is the institutional security argument Robertson is making with the word dangerous. It is not exaggeration, it is description. So here's where it actually stands, this week, today, right now. The plane is in Washington. The king is doing the work. Robertson has made her assessment in the most read English language paper on the planet. The Daily Mail used the word dangerous. Trump dismissed Harry from the Oval Office on the record. The Sandringham invitation is gone. The polling numbers keep getting worse on both continents. And Harry, somewhere on a private plane right now, is already scouting the next forum, the next speech, the next stage on which to declare that he is still doing the very thing he was born to do. The institution is watching. The record is patient. And the danger Robertson has been describing, the unlicensed driver behind the wheel of a vehicle he doesn't own, can't be held accountable for. But whose damage is real every time he gets behind the wheel, is documented, growing, and accumulating week by week. The Queen tried to draw the line in January 2020. Harry has now publicly repudiated that line from a security forum in a war zone. Whether the next line gets drawn formally, through an order in council, a palace statement, a website update that finally removes the listing, or whether it gets drawn quietly through more withdrawn invitations and sourced briefings. That is the choice Charles is now facing, while doing the diplomatic work his son just made harder. Because here's the thing about that permanent record Robertson keeps referencing. It isn't just collecting Harry's actions, it's also collecting the institution's responses, or the lack of them, the silences, the website that still lists him, The titles that still exist. The Christmas invitations that get quietly withdrawn instead of formally rescinded. And eventually, those count too. Eventually, the institution's silence becomes part of the record. Eventually, the gap between the conduct and the response becomes a statement on its own. Robertson uses the word dangerous. The permanent record supports the characterization. And the institution's response, or non-response, to that characterization is now itself going to be part of the permanent record being built in real time. Drop a comment. Where do you stand on this one? Should the palace finally formalize what's been obvious for the better part of 5 years now? Or keep absorbing whatever lands next? Curious where you guys land on this. I'll read through them tonight. Hit subscribe so you don't miss the next breakdown. There's going to be more on this. There always is. I'll catch you in the next one.
King Charles may finally be starting to realise that there is absolutely no reason to work with Prince Harry and Meghan Markle.
The withdrawal of the Sandringham invitation is being seen as one of the clearest signals King Charles has sent since the Australian tour ended. According to Paula Froelich's reporting, palace insiders say the decision was directly tied to the fallout from that trip. A friend of the king reportedly confirmed that Charles will not invite Harry and Meghan to Sandringham this summer, and the Australian tour was said to be the exact reason why. The source even described it as the straw that broke the camel's back. After years of tension, from the Oprah interview and the Netflix series to Spare and the ongoing public drama surrounding the royal family, insiders claim Charles finally reached a point where he was no longer willing to keep absorbing the pressure and criticism. The context behind the invitation also matters here. Harry reportedly was not turning down an invitation that already existed. Instead, he publicly suggested that the family would consider going to Sandringham if they were invited. That instantly placed the spotlight back on Charles and made it appear like the king held all the power over whether reconciliation could happen. Many royal watchers felt the move was carefully planned. By discussing it publicly, Harry and Meghan appeared open to reconnecting with the family while also creating emotional pressure on the palace through the grandchildren. Critics argued that it put Charles in a difficult position because refusing an invitation could make him look cold, while extending one could reopen more family tension and public scrutiny.
As courtiers briefed the Daily Mail, oh no, we're not going to punish them, we don't want to upset them, the titles aren't going to go, the line of succession isn't going to go. No, you've got to do something, Charles, because this is getting worse. And they're embarrassing you in Ukraine, they're embarrassing you in Washington, D.C., they're embarrassing you on the internet.
The situation involving the grandchildren reportedly remains one of the most emotional parts of the royal fallout for Charles personally. Reports claim the king has only met Lilibet once and may have seen Archie only a few times. That strained relationship has become a painful issue behind the scenes, making this latest Sandringham decision feel even more serious and emotionally charged. Harry reportedly knows just how emotional this entire situation is for King Charles, which is why the Sandringham discussion created so much attention inside royal circles. The controversy grew even bigger once reports suggested the visit would depend on who else was expected to attend. William and Catherine were reportedly mentioned as part of the wider family tension, instantly turning what could have been a private family matter into another public royal standoff. Many critics believed the pressure point in all of this was always the grandchildren. Since Charles reportedly has had very limited time with Archie and Lilibet, commentators argued the situation placed emotional leverage directly on the king. The public message many observers took from it was clear: family access could improve if certain conditions inside the royal family changed, but the distance would continue if they did not. That is what made the situation feel so personal and tense behind palace walls. The decision not to issue a Sandringham invitation is now being viewed as Charles refusing to bend under public pressure. Royal insiders believe the palace saw the media messaging around the invitation as an attempt to push Charles into making the first move publicly. By stepping back instead, the king reportedly sent a message that family matters would not be handled through media pressure or public negotiation. At the same time, the decision comes with a painful downside. Reports continue to say Charles has only seen Archie a handful of times and met Lilibet once. That strained relationship with the grandchildren remains one of the saddest parts of the entire royal fallout, and reportedly weighs heavily on the king personally.
Media and said, well, of course we'd entertain, we'd love to have an invitation, something along the lines of we'd entertain an invitation to Sandringham. Of course he wants that, because if you're invited by the king, you automatically get state-funded security, which is all he cares about. He doesn't want to spend any more dollars of his own.
Even so, insiders claim the palace believed giving in after months of public tension would only encourage more conflicts and headlines later on. The Australian tour reportedly became a major turning point in that thinking. Critics accused Harry and Meghan of mixing royal-style appearances with personal brand promotion during the trip, which sparked frustration among royal commentators. Combined with the ongoing fallout from interviews, documentaries, public speeches, and debates surrounding royal titles, insiders reportedly feared the drama would only continue escalating if there were no clear consequences set by the palace. Legal problems also added another layer of pressure to the situation. The Chandaka-related defamation case had already made the possibility of a Sandringham invitation politically sensitive before the Australian tour even happened. Royal observers argued that inviting Harry while legal disputes tied to media allegations remain unresolved could create damaging optics for the monarchy and raise questions about institutional support during an active court matter. On top of all that, recent reports have claimed the Sussex operation is facing growing financial pressure behind the scenes. Rising legal bills, expensive security costs, and commercial projects that reportedly have not expanded as expected are all being mentioned by insiders. Some commentators now believe those financial strains may be increasing the urgency behind public appearances, media projects, and ongoing royal tensions even more.
Anti-bullying as seen as a bully inside the palace. Absolutely he is. When he doesn't get what he wants, he stamps his foot like a child, and not only does what he was going to do anyway, but then tries to emotionally blackmail his father with his own children, Archie and Lily.
Reports claim Harry's interest in securing a Sandringham invitation may have involved more than just family reconciliation. According to insiders, one of the biggest factors was the issue of security, which continues to be one of the largest financial burdens connected to the Sussex operation. A formal royal visit would reportedly come with state-funded protection, removing a massive expense from Harry and Meghan's private costs. Sources close to the situation allegedly claimed this was a major motivation behind the push for Sandringham access. Critics argued the visit was less about rebuilding family relationships and more about regaining the benefits tied to royal proximity and official status. The security issue has remained a huge point of tension ever since Harry and Meghan stepped away from royal duties, especially with ongoing legal disputes connected to protection arrangements. That financial pressure reportedly gives extra context to why the Sandringham topic became so public. Recent reports have suggested the Sussex brand is facing growing business challenges, with expensive legal fees, security bills, and commercial projects not producing the long-term success many expected. Royal commentators believe access to royal events and official connections still carry enormous value for media attention, business opportunities, and public relevance. By refusing to extend an invitation, Charles reportedly blocked several things at once. According to royal insiders, the decision did not provide access to state-funded security, did not restore institutional support, and did not reopen the kind of royal connection the Sussex brand is often linked to in public discussions.
King looked very weak if he did have them to Sandringham. Harry and Meghan will come, but it won't be at the king's invitation, my source said adamantly. We shall see.
Observers also believe the move sent a direct message that the palace was unhappy with the conduct surrounding the Australian tour and had no intention of quietly overlooking it. Another major issue reportedly causing frustration inside royal circles was Harry's speech at a Kiev security forum. The timing of the appearance immediately sparked controversy because it happened just days before Charles prepared for a demanding state visit to Washington. That trip reportedly involved a packed schedule across Washington, New York, and Virginia, followed by a solo visit to Bermuda, all while the king continues managing cancer treatment and health concerns. During the Kiev appearance, Harry reportedly criticized aspects of American leadership and discussed issues connected to Ukraine policy, creating headlines at an especially sensitive moment for the royal family. Critics argued the speech risked pulling attention toward political controversy right before one of Charles' important international trips, adding even more pressure to an already difficult period. According to royal insiders, stress surrounding these repeated public controversies has become a serious concern behind palace walls. Medical experts often point to stress as an important factor when managing major health conditions, and reports claim people close to Charles are highly aware of that reality. William, in particular, has reportedly supported taking a firmer approach toward ongoing royal tensions, believing the constant cycle of public drama creates unnecessary strain on the king during an already challenging time. Charles reportedly arrived in Washington under intense pressure, knowing Harry had publicly criticized parts of the American administration just days before the king's important state visit. For royal insiders, the timing could not have been worse. Charles was preparing for major diplomatic meetings while also balancing ongoing health concerns and a demanding international schedule, making the controversy even more sensitive behind palace walls.
Of course, it would depend on who was there, aka William and Catherine. And it was, at the time, it was blatant emotional blackmail for the king. However, the king and the palace did put something out, a statement out that was quite strongly worded. And you know, he would love to meet his grandchildren. He's only met Lily once for a hot second. Archie possibly.
Some observers believe the most generous explanation is that Harry simply did not fully think through the consequences of his comments or how they could affect his father's visit. In that version of events, critics argue Harry acted carelessly rather than intentionally causing problems. But others inside royal circles reportedly see the situation very differently. The harsher interpretation is that Harry understood exactly how much attention the speech would attract and decided the visibility was worth the potential fallout. According to reports connected to the Wakeford sourcing, people familiar with Harry's world described him as deeply focused on maintaining public attention and staying visible internationally. Critics claim that mindset has created repeated clashes between personal publicity and the wider interests of the royal family. Royal commentators argued the Kiev Forum appearance also carried commercial value because it kept Harry connected to major international conversations and public platforms at a time when the Sussex brand is reportedly facing increasing pressure. That is why some insiders believe the palace viewed the timing as especially frustrating and difficult to ignore.
After the shopping website, no. You're going to sell your trauma closet for cash? Absolutely not. This is disgusting.
At the same time, another major media story added even more context to the ongoing Sussex discussion. Reports surrounding Us Weekly drew attention after the publication announced major staff cuts and office closures following a difficult business period. The magazine had spent years heavily leaning into celebrity coverage tied to Harry and Meghan, especially during Dan Wakeford's leadership era. According to media analysts, Us Weekly had attempted to build a model similar to People magazine, focusing heavily on celebrity access journalism connected to the Sussexes and other high-profile public figures. But reports now suggest that strategy failed to create the commercial momentum many expected, especially as interest in access-style royal coverage began shifting. The reported 50% staff reduction became a major talking point because critics viewed it as another sign that media outlets closely tied to Sussex-focused narratives.
Here's what I found. The finances are not what the headlines tell you. The $100 million Netflix deal was never $100 million. The $20 million Spotify deal was not $20 million. Sources say that the inheritance that Princess Diana gave Harry is mostly gone, and their outgoings are huge, with security bills, multiple mortgages, and legal fees estimated at $38 million. The TV projects are not what the press releases say either. The scripted polo drama, sources say it won't see the light.
We're no longer seeing the same commercial payoff. Commentators pointed out that publications which once aggressively pushed royal insider stories involving Harry and Meghan are now dealing with wider industry struggles, declining print sales, and reduced audience engagement. The entire situation also sparked debate about Dan Wakeford himself. Some commentators argued that former insiders are only now publicly confirming details that alternative royal commentators and independent media voices have been discussing for years. That has reportedly created frustration among longtime critics who feel mainstream outlets are finally catching up to stories and patterns that others were mocked for pointing out much earlier. The frustration surrounding royal coverage is very real, especially for people who feel certain stories were ignored for years. Still, many commentators argue the bigger picture matters more now, because more voices speaking openly about the situation is ultimately better than silence, no matter how late those voices arrive. A major part of the debate centers around the world of access journalism. According to critics, that system creates a situation where reporters rely on maintaining friendly relationships with celebrity figures in order to keep getting exclusives, interviews, and insider details. The problem is that once access becomes the priority, honest reporting can start taking a back seat. Observers argue this explains the gap between what Dan Wakeford reportedly covered in earlier years versus what is being discussed now.
Harry's visit to Ukraine and his attack on Donald Trump and the American administration specifically, literally 4 days before King Charles is touching down in Washington, D.C. To me, that was the ultimate slight to his...
While working within major celebrity media outlets, maintaining access to Harry and Meghan allegedly meant avoiding stories or angles that could damage the relationship. Critics say the reward was continued insider information and commercial success tied to royal headlines, but the cost was full transparency. Once those relationships weakened and the commercial value around Sussex coverage reportedly started declining, insiders claim the pressure to protect the narrative faded too. That is why some commentators believe more direct reporting has suddenly become possible. According to royal analysts, this situation highlights a bigger structural problem in celebrity media. Outlets that depend heavily on access can struggle to report critically on the same people providing them with content. Many observers now describe the Sussex media operation as one of the most carefully managed celebrity publicity systems in the modern royal environment. Outlets with close access often presented stories shaped around insider cooperation, while independent commentators focused more on public behavior, polling numbers, business performance, and visible tensions inside the royal family. Those public indicators have become harder to ignore recently. Polling data from YouGov and Roy Morgan reportedly shows major drops in public support, while financial reports and insider claims continue raising questions about the long-term strength of the Sussex brand. Critics argue the combination of legal battles, expensive security costs, struggling commercial projects, and non-stop public controversy has created growing pressure behind the scenes.
Comes to a trip like this, which remember is already incredibly stressful for King Charles. He's having to stop his cancer treatment in order to go. If you look at the itinerary, Paula, which I know you'll be all across, I mean, it's actually for someone who is going through cancer treatment, very, very taxing.
For many royal watchers, the withdrawal of the Sandringham invitation feels like Charles finally responding institutionally to all of those warning signs. The Australian tour is now widely described by insiders as the moment that pushed palace patience to its limit. After years of tension, interviews, documentaries, public criticism, and family disputes, commentators believe the monarchy is starting to take a much firmer position publicly and privately. Some analysts have even compared the situation to the Danish royal family decision that removed titles from extended family members while keeping them only for the direct line of succession. According to royal commentators, that model is increasingly being discussed as a possible example for how modern monarchies protect the core institution during periods of long-term internal conflict and public controversy. The Danish Queen's decision to remove royal titles from parts of the extended family shocked many people at the time. The move was sudden, controversial, and reportedly caused real frustration inside the family in the short term. But interestingly, some of the same relatives later admitted the decision may have actually helped create clearer boundaries and reduced long-term conflict. Royal commentators now believe that situation is being studied very closely in connection to the British monarchy.
Ukraine, he's like, oh God, why? Then he gets handed the speech, by the way, written by AI, according to Tom Sykes, which is attacking Donald Trump. And that is stress. That is stress. And that, to me, is an illustration of someone who actually doesn't give a damn about his father.
According to analysts, a similar approach in the UK could involve Charles, or eventually William, narrowing royal titles and styles so they apply mainly to the direct working line of the monarchy. That possibility has become a major topic of discussion as tensions surrounding Harry and Meghan continue. Under the scenario many royal watchers discuss, Harry would still keep his Duke of Sussex title, but the Prince styling and HRH designation could potentially be restricted or removed from active use. The same conversations also extend to Archie and Lilibet, with critics arguing that limiting royal status to working royals would reduce the commercial and public value connected to those titles. Commentators often point to examples like product branding, media promotion, and domain registrations involving royal names as part of the wider controversy. Critics claim the issue is not simply about titles themselves, but about the growing overlap between royal identity and commercial activity. According to insiders, that overlap has become one of the biggest frustrations inside palace circles. For years, the so-called half-in, half-out arrangement has remained one of the monarchy's most difficult unresolved issues. Royal analysts argue the palace rejected the original proposal because it would allow royal status to continue providing institutional value while operating outside traditional royal responsibilities. Many observers believe recent events have only strengthened the palace's position against that kind of setup. Lady Colin Campbell and several other royal commentators have repeatedly argued that narrowing royal titles through constitutional mechanisms would be both possible and proportionate. Supporters of that idea also point to the Danish example as proof that modern monarchies can redraw royal boundaries without completely destroying family relationships.
Most Australia polls were horrific. And I think he just needs to be in the public eye. I think he's incredibly self-centered. And the one thing that the king and the palace have always said to him is, stop talking to the press.
The big question now is timing. Some royal watchers believe Charles has been reluctant to take dramatic action because of the personal family consequences and ongoing health concerns surrounding the monarchy. Others believe William is far more likely to push for stronger institutional reforms once he eventually becomes king. That is why the Sandringham invitation withdrawal is being viewed as such an important signal. It may not be a formal title change or a major constitutional move, but commentators believe it represents the clearest indication yet that the palace is slowly shifting toward a firmer response. By refusing to give in to public pressure surrounding the invitation, Charles reportedly showed that the monarchy is no longer willing to quietly absorb every controversy without consequences. The Sandringham decision carries major institutional weight because many royal observers believe it marks the first time King Charles has allowed a clear and visible consequence to follow the controversies surrounding Harry and Meghan's conduct after the Australian tour. For years, critics argued the palace mostly stayed silent or tried to absorb the fallout quietly, even as tensions continued building in public. While William's direct involvement has not been officially confirmed, many royal commentators believe his influence on the decision was likely significant behind the scenes. Earlier reports in the Daily Mail suggested some palace advisors preferred avoiding major consequences after the Australian tour. But according to insiders, those voices ultimately did not win the internal debate. Instead, attention shifted to the source quoted by Paula Froelich, who reportedly described the Australian tour as the straw that broke the camel's back. That phrase became a huge talking point because it sounded less like ongoing frustration and more like a final decision had already been made. Royal analysts believe the wording reflected a palace mood that had shifted from patience to firm action.
This moment with Sarah Fosmo, Prince Harry's chief of staff, where Meghan quite obviously gives her the death stare, and anyone who has worked for Harry and Meghan knows that you get the death stare in public, but what you get in private is strips torn off.
The situation also connects to a much larger debate about how royal stories are handled in the media. Dan Wooten recently pointed to comments from royal historian Hugo Vickers, who confirmed claims that Queen Elizabeth had concerns private conversations could potentially be recorded during meetings with Harry and Meghan. According to reports, those concerns were discussed privately years ago, but were heavily dismissed publicly at the time. Wooten had raised similar allegations back in 2020 and faced major criticism for it, with some people labeling the claims conspiracy theories. Then years later, Vickers reportedly confirmed that the concerns had existed inside royal circles all along. For critics of mainstream royal coverage, that became another example of stories being mocked early on before eventually receiving institutional confirmation much later. Commentators argue this pattern has repeated itself constantly in the post-Megxit era. Independent commentators and alternative royal media often raised concerns long before major outlets or palace insiders publicly acknowledged them. But by the time official confirmation arrived, the controversies had already continued for years without meaningful consequences. That delay is exactly why some critics believe access journalism and institutional caution created major problems for the monarchy. According to analysts, the desire to avoid conflict or maintain relationships allowed repeated tensions, public disputes, and commercial controversies to continue growing unchecked. Now, however, many royal watchers believe the Sandringham withdrawal could signal the start of a very different phase. It may seem like a relatively small step on the surface, but after years of public drama with little institutional pushback, observers see it as the clearest sign yet that the palace is finally willing to impose boundaries and consequences in response to ongoing royal conflict. King Charles's state visit to Washington created one of the clearest contrasts yet between the monarchy's traditional role and the path Harry has taken since leaving royal duties.
A workplace psychopath smiling to the public on one side of her face and glowering at you on the secret side. The woman treats anyone she has power over as totally disposable. You are just treated like a tradesman who is there to fix the toy.
According to royal commentators, Charles was carrying out exactly what the institution is designed to do, using royal influence and diplomacy to support national interests during a difficult international moment. What made the trip even more striking was the personal cost behind it. Reports stated Charles temporarily paused cancer treatment while preparing for a demanding schedule across Washington, New York, Virginia, and Bermuda. Despite ongoing health concerns, the king still moved forward with the visit, focusing on diplomacy, public duty, and maintaining international relationships during a politically sensitive period. Observers pointed out that there was no commercial angle attached to the trip. Charles was representing the monarchy and the country, not promoting a personal brand or private business interest. That distinction became even more noticeable because only days earlier, Harry had appeared at an international security forum in Kiev and publicly criticized aspects of American leadership and Ukraine policy discussions. The timing instantly fueled controversy inside royal circles. Critics argued the contrast between the two appearances could not have been sharper. On one side was Charles carrying out traditional state responsibilities while managing serious health issues. On the other was Harry making politically charged remarks during a high-profile international appearance just before the king's diplomatic visit. For many royal watchers, the situation highlighted two completely different visions of royal identity. One approach centers around institutional duty, political neutrality, and long-term service to the country. The other is viewed by critics as more focused on personal visibility, media attention, and independent global influence outside palace control.
Hugo Vickers comes out in his book, and remember, he's a great guy, close confidant of late Queen Elizabeth II, finally comes out and says, oh yeah, the Queen was worried that Harry and Meghan were wired and that they were secretly recording the conversations and potentially trying to set them up. I mean, I reported that back in 2020, Paula, and at that point, people were calling me a conspiracy.
The debate surrounding those two paths has now become one of the defining tensions of the entire post-Megxit era. That is why the Sandringham invitation withdrawal is being interpreted as much more than a simple family dispute. According to commentators, the palace is quietly signaling that certain conduct and public strategies will no longer be accommodated without consequence. The move may seem measured and restrained, but many believe it represents the beginning of a larger institutional shift. Several major developments are still looming in the months ahead. The Washington state visit is expected to shape future diplomatic relationships. Ongoing security reviews could affect Harry's protection arrangements, and multiple legal battles connected to the Sussexes continue moving forward. At the same time, Sandringham reportedly remains off the table this summer, reinforcing the message that palace patience has reached a limit after years of controversy, public tension, and unresolved conflict. The big question now is whether the monarchy will continue acting on this tougher position or eventually go back to absorbing more controversy the way it has for years. Many royal commentators believe the Sandringham decision could either be the start of lasting institutional change or simply another temporary reaction before tensions rise again. Another major factor fueling debate is the growing attention around Charlotte Griffith and the messages connected to the Daily Mail legal proceedings. According to reports, the released Facebook messages have dramatically changed how many observers view her past claims about Harry. Critics argue the documents gave her account a level of credibility that public arguments alone never could. The controversy became especially explosive because Harry had reportedly denied aspects of the relationship under oath, while the messages appearing during the case were interpreted by commentators as directly contradicting those denials. That shift reportedly caused some previously skeptical observers to reassess the entire situation once documentary evidence entered the public discussion. Royal analysts say Griffith now appears far more willing to speak openly about the relationship, William's reported feelings toward Harry, and claims surrounding royal family tensions because the messages strengthened her credibility publicly. According to commentators, this is exactly the kind of situation that changes media coverage permanently. Not just competing stories or anonymous sources, but actual documented evidence becoming part of the public record. Critics of mainstream royal reporting have pointed to this pattern for years. They argue that alternative commentators and independent media often raise concerns long before traditional outlets fully engage with them. But once documents, court filings, messages, or official records emerge, the conversation shifts dramatically because the focus moves from opinion to verifiable material. Several recent controversies have reportedly followed that same pattern. Commentators frequently mention legal documents, public statements, and contradictions between earlier claims and later evidence as examples of why public trust in royal coverage has become so divided. Each new document that surfaces reportedly adds pressure, because it creates direct comparisons between previous denials and the documented record now available publicly. Observers argue this is where things become especially difficult politically and legally. A public denial can survive media speculation for years, but once written evidence appears, critics say the conversation changes entirely. At that point, the issue is no longer one person's word against another's. It becomes a matter of records, messages, statements, and court material that can be examined directly. The Daily Mail proceedings reportedly intensified that problem even further, because multiple pieces of evidence emerging through the case were said to conflict with earlier public claims and sworn statements. Royal commentators now believe those contradictions could continue shaping public perception and media coverage for a long time, especially as more legal and institutional battles surrounding the Sussexes continue unfolding publicly. Observers believe several ongoing legal and political processes could still bring even more attention to the Sussex situation in the months ahead. According to commentators, future discovery phases connected to ongoing court cases and reviews tied to Harry's visa situation may continue adding new documents, records, and evidence into the public conversation. Critics argue every new release makes it harder for carefully managed media narratives to fully control the story. At the same time, many royal analysts say the traditional celebrity access media system is not as powerful as it once was. Publications like Town and Country, People, and Vanity Fair are often viewed as some of the remaining outlets still closely connected to Sussex-friendly coverage. But commentators argue the wider media landscape has started shifting dramatically. The collapse of Us Weekly's strategy became one of the biggest warning signs for that model. Critics pointed to staff cuts, office closures, and declining influence as evidence that celebrity access journalism built heavily around the Sussexes may no longer deliver the commercial success media companies expected. According to analysts, the business side of royal coverage is changing fast as audiences become more skeptical and demand stronger evidence behind major claims. Another major turning point came when larger publications such as the Daily Telegraph reportedly became more willing to publish sourcing and commentary that challenged the previously dominant narrative. Commentators argue that combination, insider quotes appearing alongside polling numbers, legal filings, and independent reporting, has created a completely different media environment compared to the early post-Megxit years. For many royal watchers, this entire week represented a major shift in the long-running Sussex saga. The Sandringham invitation withdrawal, the Wakeford reporting, the Charlotte Griffith messages, criticism surrounding the Kiev speech, and the struggles facing Sussex-focused media outlets all combined into one massive public narrative. Supporters and critics will continue interpreting those events differently, but commentators agree the conversation around Harry and Meghan is now changing in a much more visible way. Some outlets will reportedly continue defending the Sussex perspective through celebrity access reporting and carefully managed insider coverage. At the same time, independent commentators and alternative royal media are increasingly focusing on documents, polling numbers, court records, and verifiable evidence instead of anonymous image management. That divide between the two approaches has now become one of the biggest battles inside royal media coverage itself. The phrase, "the camel's back is broken," has become symbolic for many commentators because they believe the palace is finally reaching the end of its willingness to quietly absorb repeated controversies without responding institutionally. According to analysts, once trust and patience inside the monarchy are damaged repeatedly, simply smoothing things over publicly may no longer be enough to repair the relationship. Charles's recent centenary-style address from Balmoral added even more weight to that interpretation. Observers noted visible signs of physical strain during the recording, yet the king still renewed his commitment to duty and public service, despite ongoing health challenges. Royal commentators believe that message was deeply important because it showed Charles publicly reaffirming the monarchy's role and responsibilities at the exact same time the palace reportedly decided not to issue the Sandringham invitation Harry had hoped for. For many observers, those two decisions together revealed the clearest picture yet of where the monarchy now stands. Let me know what you think about the palace's latest move, and don't forget to like and subscribe for more royal updates.
They are so broke. Harry is going bankrupt. This is a guy that needs $25 million now. The big name sponsor is now pulling out.
For years, Prince Harry and Meghan Markle sold the world a powerful story of freedom and independence. Freedom from palace control, freedom from royal traditions, and freedom to create a massive international empire completely on their own terms. They painted a picture of a couple ready to leave the monarchy behind and step into a glamorous new future filled with billion-dollar opportunities, Hollywood influence, and global celebrity power. And for a while, it seemed like everything was working perfectly. Huge media deals were signed, major companies lined up to work with them, and Hollywood elites treated the couple like untouchable stars. Every interview, every documentary, and every public appearance helped push the idea that Harry and Meghan had successfully reinvented themselves outside the royal family.
The prince is in big financial trouble. She tells me that he made money from the book Spare and the Netflix deal, but the cash is running out, and it's running out fast, and his long-term future is bleak.
But now, behind the luxury Montecito mansion gates, behind the polished Netflix image, behind the carefully planned Instagram relaunches and high-end lifestyle branding, a much darker and far more complicated reality appears to be unfolding. More critics, insiders, and commentators are beginning to question whether the Sussex operation is quietly running into serious trouble behind closed doors. Reports continue to surface about collapsing business deals, missing sponsors, growing legal costs, and public setbacks that are becoming harder to ignore. At the same time, questions are growing about whether the couple's incredibly expensive lifestyle can realistically be maintained if major opportunities continue disappearing. The pressure surrounding the brand seems to be intensifying with every passing month, and the timing could not look worse. Reports now claim Harry's speaking fees have crashed from nearly $1 million per appearance to closer to $50,000. Spotify reportedly walked away from its partnership, while many powerful Hollywood figures who once proudly stood beside the couple have suddenly become quiet and distant. Now, the biggest concern may be centered around Invictus, the one institution still strongly tied to Harry's public image and personal legacy. A major corporate sponsor reportedly appears ready to pull out, while growing questions about spending and financial oversight are attracting more public attention.
Financial and royal expert tells me that Harry is on financial life support. The business partnerships are disappearing. The broadcasting career is non-existent. Don't forget that Spotify, who are the biggest podcast platform in the world, called Harry and Meghan, and I quote, a pair of effing grifters.
With government money connected to the organization, scrutiny is only getting stronger. And if Invictus starts losing support, Harry could risk losing the final major pillar, still holding up his relevance on the world stage. This is no longer being viewed as just another royal family feud or celebrity disagreement. What started as a dramatic split from the monarchy is now turning into something much bigger. A high-stakes story about reputation, money, influence, public image, and the brutal reality that hits when celebrity branding crashes into financial pressure. According to multiple commentators, business analysts, royal insiders, and even some former media supporters, the entire Sussex business model may now be struggling under the weight of its own promises and contradictions.
The big-name sponsor is now pulling out of the event. You've heard me right. Boeing, one of the biggest companies in the world, are done. They are out. They've checked out of the project.
When Harry and Meghan first stepped away from royal duties, many people believed they were entering a brand new golden era filled with unlimited opportunity. Huge companies rushed to work with them. Major media outlets treated them like global superstars, and the couple appeared ready to dominate Hollywood, streaming, publishing, and luxury branding all at once. The numbers attached to their deals were massive. Netflix reportedly signed the couple to an agreement once publicly valued at nearly $100 million. Spotify joined the wave of excitement soon after. Harry's memoir, Spare, became one of the fastest-selling nonfiction books ever released, while Meghan was expected to transform herself into a powerful lifestyle mogul with global influence. Harry, meanwhile, was expected to evolve into a respected public figure capable of commanding massive speaking fees around the world. But now, 6 years later, the picture surrounding the Sussex brand appears far less stable than many originally imagined. Several major revenue streams connected to the couple reportedly look smaller, weaker, cancelled, or far below the expectations that once surrounded them. Spotify reportedly ended after only one season. Netflix projects are said to have shrunk in scope behind the scenes. The Polo documentary that once generated headlines has almost vanished from public discussion altogether.
Invictus is a brilliant idea, and it's done great stuff. But there are big problems financially which could destroy the whole project. And be clear, no Invictus, no Harry.
Better Up, once promoted heavily as part of Harry's corporate future, has also faded from the spotlight and rarely creates major headlines anymore. At the same time, the couple's expenses reportedly never slowed down. Their Montecito mansion alone is believed to carry mortgage payments close to $100,000 every single month. Property taxes reportedly climb into the hundreds of thousands each year, while security costs, considered essential for globally recognized public figures, are estimated in the millions annually. And unlike working royals inside the monarchy, Harry and Meghan no longer have a royal institution covering those costs behind the scenes. Every major expense now depends heavily on commercial success, media relevance, and continued public interest. That changes the entire equation. Royal life and celebrity life operate by completely different rules. Inside the monarchy, visibility is carefully controlled, public appearances remain limited, and institutional prestige creates long-term influence almost automatically.
Outgoings, eye-watering fixed costs, housing, and the Montecito mansion. They bought the place for just under $15 million. It was money they didn't have. They took out a massive mortgage, around $10 million, monthly mortgage payments, $100,000 a month, which, yes, they've got a few million in the bank, but you're going to feel that, $100,000 a month. Annual property taxes, $280,000. Maintenance for the 9-bedroom, 16-bathroom estate, the pool, the tennis courts, the Kai pond, the grounds. Because don't forget, Meghan's not doing that gardening. Oh, my husband. It's amazing on my TV show with Love Meghan. It was very incredible how I managed to collect all of the vegetables from my garden and all of the fruit. They were incredibly clean and everything was in season.